Chapter 955. Ice Palace. Alright. In fact, Ouyang Aoshue had already vaguely guessed the reason why she did this. However, after getting confirmation from her, Ouyang Aoshue felt helpless and a little envious. She then took her to Ice Hell. After Ouyang Aoshue and Yusiki left, Yu Xian, who had left, reappeared in front of the cultivation room. Silly disciple. Looking at Yusiki's back, Yu Xian could not help but shake her head and sigh with a bitter smile. In the Hengduan mountain range. Ling Fei, this is a level 5, level 7 lilac flower. It can be used to make a level 5, level 1, soul cleansing pill that can eliminate inner demons and calm one's spirit. Yu Haoran introduced as he pointed at a spiritual flower that emitted a strong fragrance and was very beautiful in color. Haoran, I heard that directly swallowing the lilac flower can also achieve the effect of calming one's spirit and eliminating inner demons. Is that true? Looking at the beautiful lilac flower in front of her and listening to Yu Haoran's introduction, Qin Lingfei suddenly thought of a record that she had read in a secret alchemy book. She quickly asked, "That's right." Yu Haoran nodded and took out a wooden box from his storage ring. When he bent down to pick the lilac flowers, a black snake that was only a meter long suddenly darted out from behind a green rock about 3 meters away from the lilac flowers. Its entire body was pitch black and emitted a foul stench. "Leave a drop of venom and get out of here." Yu Haoran coldly looked at the black snake and scolded in a frosty voice. When it saw that the human who was going to pick the spiritual flower that it was guarding was actually Yu Haoran, who had killed 11 kings in the Hengduan mountain range, the black snake immediately trembled in fear. It then obediently spat out a mouthful of venom and quickly fled the scene. Although directly swallowing the lilac flower also has the effect of calming one's spirit, the effect will be greatly reduced. It is far less effective than refining it into an elixir, Yu Haoran explained as he kept the black snake's venom and picked the lilac flower. "So that's how it is." Nodding her head, Qin Lingfei observed her surroundings. Just as she planned to continue searching for precious medicinal ingredients, she unexpectedly saw the black snake that had just fled the scene and was desperately running back. Her expression could not help but change as she hurriedly reminded him. "Haoran, something seems to have happened in the depths of the mountain." Yu Haoran quickly put away the wooden box containing the thaling flower. While using his divine telekinesis to check, he also quickly reminded the victor of the thaling flower. This is. Although the speed of using divine sense was a step slower, Thaling's powerful cultivation allowed him to immediately discover the changes in the depths of the mountain range. A small hill about 30 meters away from Yu Haoran's location suddenly collapsed, and a large amount of black gas gushed out from the collapsed area. Thaling felt a sense of familiarity. This is the Black Lotus that is as famous as the innate spirit object White Lotus. After his divine sense sensed the familiar aura in the black gas, Thaling immediately shouted in surprise. "Thaling, could it be the Black Lotus that is said to have the ultimate defense and can eventually become a divine artifact?" After hearing Thaling's surprised explanation of the origin of the Black Lotus, the memory of seeing the Black Lotus in his previous life suddenly came to Yu Haoran's mind, causing him to ask in surprise. "That's right." While nodding his head to confirm, Thaling hurriedly signaled Yu Haoran to take out the rank 5 White Lotus that he had obtained during his engagement ceremony with Qin Lingfei. Following Thaling's instructions, Yu Haoran hurriedly took out the rank 5 White Lotus from his storage ring. Looking at the rank 5 White Lotus in Yu Haoran's hand, Thaling was slightly excited as he introduced it. The relationship between the White Lotus and the Black Lotus is just like the relationship between the orthodox and diabolical martial artists. As long as they meet, they will definitely fight to the death. If the rank 5 White Lotus can successfully devour the Black Lotus, it might be able to bloom the 6th petal and officially become a supreme-grade venerable. "Thaling, what should I do next?" Yu Haoran also asked excitedly. "Use your primary force to send the White Lotus into the black gas." You will definitely be able to lure the Black Lotus out. Then, you can help the White Lotus defeat the Black Lotus and complete the devouring process. There won't be any unforeseen events, right? Looking at the increasing amount of black gas emerging from the deep pit, Yuhaoran could not help but ask worriedly. This was because he intended to give the rank 5 White Lotus away as a gift. He did not want any accidents to happen. Don't worry, there won't be any problems. Thaling patted his chest and promised. All right then. Since Thaling had patted his chest and promised, Yuhaoran was temporarily relieved. He signaled for Qin Lingfei to wait where she was. He immediately soared into the air and stopped when he was 10,000 meters away from the deep pit where the black gas was emerging. Then, he used his primary force to send the rank 5 White Lotus into the black gas. As the rank 5 White Lotus merged into the black gas, which was originally just emerging, immediately began to churn violently. As the black gas churned violently, an incomparably powerful aura gradually emerged from the deep pit. Oh no! Feeling the powerful aura emerging from the deep pit, Thaling's expression changed, and he knew that things were not going well. Then, he mobilized all of his spiritual sense, intending to forcibly retrieve the rank 5 White Lotus that had merged into the black gas. Unfortunately, the moment his spiritual sense of a peak 9th grade martial honorable reached the edge of the black gas, it was swept back by the powerful aura. Yuhaoran, I'm sorry. Thaling, who was well aware of the life and death relationship between the black and white lotuses, finally sighed and apologized to Yuhaoran. Thaling, didn't you say that there would be no problems? Yuhaoran questioned with a livid expression. Originally, according to the incomplete laws of the heavenly way, there shouldn't be any power exceeding the martial honorable realm. However, I never expected that the Black Lotus in the deep pit would break this restriction. Faced with Yuhaoran's questioning, Thaling explained with a bitter smile. At this moment, the Black Lotus in the deep pit not only has 7 petals, it has also developed its own consciousness. Is it possible to subdue the rank 7 Black Lotus? Since there was no way to retrieve the rank 5 White Lotus, Yuhaoran had to consider how to reduce his losses. Therefore, he did not blame Thaling and instead asked for a way to subdue the Black Lotus. Unless your cultivation can break through the Emperor Wu's realm, you won't even have a way to get close to the rank 7 Black Lotus. At this point, Thaling glanced at the aura that was growing stronger and stronger, and the hidden black gas that was beginning to expand outwards, and hurriedly reminded him. Moreover, you must inform the disciples of the Qingyun faction to leave the Hengduan Mountains immediately. This is because in an hour, the entire Hengduan Mountains will be completely transformed into a black mountain range by the Black Lotus. It will become its place of cultivation. Yuhaoran glanced unwillingly at the constantly churning black gas, then flashed back to Qin Lingfei's side. Then, he grabbed her slender waist and rose into the air as he gave a simple explanation. The Hengduan Mountains is about to change. We must leave here as soon as possible. Chapter 956. Outside the Hengduan Mountains. Ling Fei, go back to the palace in Xianyang City, and refine the Xian Yin Soul Fire as soon as possible. With the help of the Xian Yin Soul Fire, try to break through to the martial sage realm before the start of the Hidden Dragon list. After quickly leaving the Hengduan Mountains, Yuhaoran readjusted his depressed mood and reminded Qin Lingfei with a smile. What about you? When they left in a hurry, Yuhaoran did not explain the reason for the change in the Hengduan Mountains. Qin Lingfei was worried that he might risk returning to the depths of the mountains after sending her away safely, so she could not help but ask worriedly. After you leave, I'll immediately rush to Guangling City. Knowing the reason for Qin Lingfei's worry, Yuhaoran explained with a smile. Because the Heavenly Earth Chamber of Commerce will hold a grand auction in Guangling City. There are a few treasures that I need. Are you sure? Facing Yuhaoran's explanation, Qin Lingfei asked in disbelief. I'm 100% sure. Yu Haoran nodded heavily and patted his chest to assure her. All right then. Qin Lingfei nodded in agreement, pretending to believe him. Then, she tidied up Yu Haoran's clothes and kissed him on the cheek. She directly flew out of the Hengduan Mountains and flew in the direction of Xianyang City. Not leaving for the time being, Yu Haoran waited until He Xiong took Chu Zhongyu and the others out of the Hengduan Mountains and watched them leave. Then, he flew out of the Hengduan Mountains and went straight to Guangling City. However, when he was about 300 miles away from the Hengduan Mountains and found a dense forest below, he flashed into the dense forest and concealed his aura. He also reminded Thaling to pay attention to the situation outside the Hengduan Mountains. It did not take long, only about 5 minutes. Qin Lingfei, who had left long ago, returned to the Hengduan Mountains. After carefully checking with her divine thought, she muttered to herself with a puzzled expression. Could it be that I guessed wrongly? Haoran really left the Hengduan Mountains and went to Guangling City. Qin Lingfei was still worried, so she used her divine sense to check 3 more times. After confirming that Yu Haoran had not returned to the Hengduan mountain range, she finally soared into the sky and quickly returned to Xianyang City. Yu Haoran was not in a hurry to leave the forest. He hid for nearly half an hour. After he was sure that Qin Lingfei would not come back, he left the forest and reappeared at the periphery of the Hengduan Mountains. At this moment, nearly half of the entire Hengduan mountain range was shrouded by the black gas, and the miserable cries of exotic beasts kept ringing in their ears. Yu Haoran, before your cultivation reaches the level of Emperor Wu, it's best not to rashly provoke that Tier 7 Black Lotus. Thaling knew the reason why Yu Haoran had returned to the Hengduan mountain range, but he was even more aware of the terror of a Grade 7 Black Lotus. Therefore, he cautioned Yu Haoran carefully. Thaling, don't worry. I won't joke around with my life. Hearing Thaling's careful reminder, Yu Haoran knew that he was still worried that he would blame himself for losing the Grade 5 White Lotus. Therefore, he took the initiative to avoid the topic of the Grade 5 White Lotus and changed the topic to the Hengduan mountain range. Thaling, do you still remember what Senior Greenwolf said to that old fox when he used the law of blood and his own blood essence to form the Blood Sea? It seems like he wanted that old fox to open the seal deep in the mountain range and release even more dense and pure spiritual qi to help him increase the power of the Blood Sea. Thaling recalled carefully and said, That's right. Nodding his head, Yu Haoran stared at the depths of the Hengduan mountain range and said with a hint of anticipation in his voice, That old fox would rather release the thunder beast that can increase his cultivation and strength than open the seal deep in the mountain range. This means that there must be an even more shocking secret hidden deep in the mountain range. After hearing Yu Haoran's speculation, Thaling immediately mobilized his peak 9th grade martial revered divine sense and took the risk to check the situation deep in the Hengduan mountain range. Fortunately, the Grade 7 Black Lotus did not leave the deep pit. The black gas alone could not stop Thaling's powerful divine sense. In the end, his divine sense reached the core of the Hengduan mountain range. Yu Haoran, your speculation is right. There must be a shocking secret hidden deep in the Hengduan mountain range. Seeing the 9 purple talismans that prevented the black gas from corroding and infiltrating, Thaling said with a solemn expression. Thaling, are you able to open the secret hidden deep in the mountain range now? After receiving Thaling's confirmation, Yu Haoran immediately asked in surprise. Let me try. Although the 9 purple talismans belonged to the long-lost incantation, Thaling still had a certain degree of confidence in breaking the seal due to the special relationship between the incantation and the formation. As the talismans continued to be broken, the purple light contained in the talismans gradually radiated in all directions, forcing the black gas close to the talismans to retreat. This also attracted the attention of the Black Lotus in the deep pit not far from the talismans. In addition to more black gas emerging from the deep pit, the black gas that had expanded to 2/3 of the area immediately shrank. The two black gas joined forces and approached the 9 purple talismans. I see. As the 9 purple talismans continued to be broken, the aura from the talisman seal allowed Thaling to finally know the true secret hidden deep in the mountain range. He also understood why the gray fox was unwilling to open the seal until its death. Yuhauran, in the deepest part of the mountain range, there is a purple fox that has been severely injured and may die at any time. The natural ruler of the fox tribe, the purple fox that can compete with the 9-tailed fox. Yuhauran was shocked and asked with a trembling voice. That's right. As he nodded to confirm, Thaling explained with a solemn expression. Moreover, the severely injured purple fox is already at the peak of the 3rd rank honorable realm. It is only a step away from breaking through to the quasi-emperor realm. Sizzle! Yuhauran could not help but gasp. A trace of fear flashed across his eyes as he looked into the depths of the mountain range. However, his fear was replaced by surprise and he asked, Thaling, can you cause a conflict between the Black Lotus and the Purple Fox? No. However, Thaling's unhesitant reply made Yuhauran very disappointed, and he continued to ask unwillingly. Why? Because the Purple Fox's injuries are too serious. If I remove the seal protecting it, it will definitely be devoured by the Black Lotus. This may cause the Black Lotus, which has devoured the 5th rank White Lotus and the Purple Fox, to bloom its 8th petal. Thaling reminded with a solemn expression. If the Black Lotus advances to the 8th rank, no one will be able to suppress the Black Lotus unless it is an expert at the peak of the Emperor Wu's realm. This may bring disaster to the entire southern region. Sigh. Yuhauran could not help but let out a long sigh as he looked at the shrinking black gas in the mountain range. Chapter 957. Guangling City was a bustling city with a population of over 1 million. However, it was not under the jurisdiction of the great Emperor Qin's kingdom, nor was it under the rule of any other power. It was a city that was jointly managed and ruled by various powers. Within Guangling City, there were a total of 5 great clans. They were the Gui clan that ranked first, the Feng clan that ranked second, the Huang clan that ranked third, the Gu clan that ranked fourth, and the Yan clan that ranked last. Not only did the 5 great clans occupy close to 80% of Guangling City's territory, the experts of the 5 great clans would also take turns to be the city lord every 3 years. They would then continue to divide the remaining 20% of the territory. It could be said that the 5 great clans were the heaven and earth of Guangling City, controlling the lives and deaths of millions of people in the city. Looking at the city walls of Guangling City that were more than 20 meters tall, Yuhauran could not help but sigh. Actually, according to his initial plan, he had not planned to enter Guangling City. However, when he was killing the quasi-exalt realm beasts in the Hengduan mountain range, a peak 9th grade martial saint expert from the Yan clan of Guangling City had secretly used his spiritual sense to invite him to participate in the auction held by the Heavenly Earth in Guangling City. Of course, if it was just an ordinary auction, he would not have changed his plan so easily. However, according to the expert from the Yan clan, a 3rd grade 9th grade Yin-Yang Life Soul Pill would appear in the auction held by the Heavenly Earth. The Yin-Yang Life Soul Pill, also known as the Life and Death Pill, had the heaven-defying effect of reviving the dead. Even if one's soul suffered unimaginable damage, as long as one consumed the Yin-Yang Life Soul Pill within an hour, there was a 90% chance that one would completely recover in a short period of time. Of course, the Yin-Yang Life Soul Pill that appeared in the auction was only a useless pill and did not have the effect of reviving the dead. Otherwise, the Heavenly Earth would not have taken out such a heaven-defying pill for auction. However, to alchemists who were obsessed with the art of alchemy, the temptation of the Yin-Yang Life Soul Pill's useless pill was no less than a peak-grade martial saint artifact. This was because through studying the useless pill, it was possible to recreate the pill formula of the Yin-Yang Life Soul Pill. Although the probability of reproducing the pill formula was very low, it was not impossible. This was also the important reason why he decided to change his plan and head to Guangling City. In his previous life, he had explored many ruins and forbidden land. He had obtained thousands of pill formulas, but he had never obtained the Yin-Yang Life Soul pill formula. 1 10th grade Spirit Stone. Just as they reached the south gate of Guangling City, the family guard in charge of guarding the city directly demanded the entrance fee. Having lived in Guangling City for a period of time in his previous life, Yu Haoran, who understood the situation in Guangling City, directly threw a spirit stone that he had prepared beforehand to the city guard. Just as he was about to step into the city guard who had just received the spirit stone suddenly blocked his path, looking at the storage ring on his finger while reminding him with a smile. Kid, the one spiritual stone just now was only the entrance fee. Now you have to take out 6 10th level first grade spiritual stones as compensation for our hard work. Are you trying to extort me? Ever since his rebirth, he had never been extorted in such a brazen manner. Furthermore, he was being extorted by a mere 7th grade martial master who was in charge of guarding the city gate. This caused Yu Haoran to be stunned. Immediately, a wave of anger surged in his heart. I'm afraid that even if you have the life to take it, you won't have the life to use it. Oh, I didn't expect you to be so stubborn. Hearing Yu Haoran's threat, the 7th grade martial grandmaster guard let out a strange cry. He then waved his hand at his 4 companions and ordered with a sinister smile. Brothers, loosen up this kid's muscles and let him know the consequences of offending the Huang clan. Originally, he had wanted to find a way to kill these ants who had dared to extort him. However, an idea had emerged in his mind after he had heard that these people were from the Huang clan. Perhaps this was a way to earn a large amount of spirit stones. Thus, he directly activated the dense killing intent in his body and used it to firmly suppress the 5 people surrounding him. Then, he stared at them with a cold gaze. The 5 guards who were suppressed by the dense killing intent immediately trembled as they knelt on the ground. However, faced with Yu Haoran's cold gaze, the 7th grade martial master guard who had just extorted him was not afraid in the slightest as he threatened. Kid, you actually dare to make me kneel. You're dead meat. Oh, you still dare to be so arrogant even in the face of death. It seems like you won't shed a tear until you see the coffin. Although he did not activate his aura and did not reveal his true cultivation, the dense killing intent he had just condensed was enough to show his valiance and ruthlessness. However, under these circumstances, not only was the other party not afraid, they even dared to continue threatening him. This not only showed the Huang clan's tyrannical way of doing things, it also showed how cruel the exploitation of Guangling City by the 5 great clans was. Yu Haoran extended his finger and used his strength to directly kill a 5th grade martial master guard. He glanced at the 7th grade martial master guard who had just forcefully threatened him and discovered a trace of fear in his eyes. He pointed his finger at the 2nd 5th grade martial master guard and used the same strength to kill him. Not only did he not show any mercy by killing 2 of his companions, he also did not have any intention of fleeing. This showed that not only was the young man in front of him powerful, his background was also not small. This caused the fear to overcome the arrogance of the clan behind him. The 7th grade martial master guard immediately kowtowed and begged for mercy. You immediately scram back to the Huang clan and have your Huang clan's patriarch personally come and see me. Having finally defeated the other party's arrogance, the anger in Yu Haoran's heart finally calmed down a little. However, the opportunity to make use of the humiliation to earn spirit stones was not yet complete. Thus, Yu Haoran shouted at a guard at the peak of the 5th grade martial master. Yes, I'll go right away. The guard, who had long been scared out of his wits, immediately rushed into the city with all his might. Then, using what was probably the fastest speed in his life, he rushed towards the Huang clan in the inner city. Who is this young man? He actually dares to provoke the Huang clan, who kills without blinking an eye. There were many people who entered Guangling City through the southern city gate. After witnessing the conflict with their own eyes, they all guessed Yu Haoran's origins. No matter who he is, he has offended the Huang clan, who are known as butchers. I'm afraid it will be difficult for him to die even if he wants to. A middle-aged man who understood the Huang clan very well gloated. I wonder when the great Emperor Qin's army will be able to attack Guangling City and destroy the evil 5 great clans. A white-haired old man who had lost both his arms viciously cursed. Sigh. Chapter 958. Guangling City, South City Gate. The discussions and sighs of the surrounding people made Yu Haoran change his mind. He originally only wanted to extort a portion of the spiritual stones so that he could successfully bid for the yin-yang life soul pill. In his previous life, although he had lived in Guangling City for a period of time, that was after his cultivation had reached the peak of the 9th grade Martial King, and he had made some progress in the way of poison. Therefore, he had only come into contact with people from the 5 great clans in Guangling City. He did not know that under the rule of the 5 great clans, Guangling City had already reached the point of being hated by the heavens and the people. Although he was not a merciful bodhisattva, he still felt extremely disgusted and angry at the actions of the 5 great clans. How dare you kill the guards of the Huang clan? I think you're tired of living. Just as Yu Haoran was about to change his plan to deal with the Huang clan and obtain some justice for the citizens of Guangling City, he suddenly heard a roar. Following the roar, a huge palm formed from soul power and Yuan Qi quickly attacked. Yu Haoran could not help but laugh coldly. A mere peak 9th grade martial royal realm cultivator wants to kill me with a giant palm. Then, he withdrew the dense killing intent that was suppressing the guards and took out his purple staff. With a sky-shattering staff technique, he directly shattered the huge palm formed from soul power and Yuan Qi. Ever since he had left the great Emperor Qin's kingdom, the opponents he had fought were either quasi-martial exalts or quasi-martial exalt. Although he had defeated his opponents using secret techniques and possession techniques, his experience and strength had increased by an unimaginable amount. Now, without using any secret techniques or activating the ancestral witch's body, his own strength was enough to easily kill a peak 3rd grade martial saint. Furthermore, this was under the premise that the peak 3rd grade martial saint had used the power of laws. Seeing the young man in front of him easily shatter the huge palm formed from soul power and Yuan Qi, the martial king who had quickly appeared at the city gate asked with a serious expression. "May I ask who you are? And who are you?" Yu Haoran asked casually. "I am Huang Guilong, the deputy hall master of the Huang family's White Tiger Hall." Huang Guilong replied truthfully. The reason why Huang Guilong answered honestly was because he had discovered that not only was the young man's cultivation also at the 9th grade martial dominator realm, his body was also emitting a lofty aura, indicating that he had an extraordinary background. Therefore, in order to avoid provoking unnecessary trouble for the Huang clan, he changed his arrogant and overbearing attitude from before. "You don't have the qualifications to know who I am. Hurry up and get your Huang family's patriarch to see me." When Yu Haoran heard the other party's background, a trace of disdain flashed across his face. He was just a deputy hall master of a hall. "Your Excellency, you've gone too far." Yu Haoran's disdainful tone caused Huang Guilong's expression to instantly darken. A murderous aura surged from his body as he questioned. "No, I'm just speaking the truth." Yu Haoran raised the purple cudgel in his hand and pointed the cudgel at Huang Guilong as he scolded him. "Go back immediately and tell the Huang family's patriarch that if he doesn't come to see me in a minute, I'll knock on their door." "Brat, you're courting death." Yu Haoran's arrogant attitude completely enraged Huang Guilong. He didn't know how to retaliate verbally, so he roared and rushed forward with a murderous aura. In the past, a 9th-grade martial dominator realm cultivation would have been necessary to test his own strength. But now, this move of the overturning seas and rivers staff technique, which did not require any intent realm, directly cut Huang Guilong in half. Sizzle! With the same level of cultivation, he had easily killed Huang Guilong with just a casual move of the staff. Everyone at the scene sucked in a breath of cold air. This young man is at least a disciple of a first-rate sect. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to reach the 9th-grade martial dominator realm at such a young age. It would be even more impossible for him to have such powerful strength. An experienced and knowledgeable martial saint realm expert guessed with a very certain tone. That's right. Aside from the 7 great sects and first-rate sects, no other place could cultivate such a powerful disciple. Another 9th-grade martial dominator realm expert agreed. The other onlookers all nodded in agreement. Go inform the Huang family's patriarch and then tell him. Yu Haoran ordered as he pointed the purple cudgel at a 4th-grade martial master guard. If you don't appear in front of me in a minute, then the Huang family's several hundred years of inheritance will be severed today. Yes, I'll go now. After receiving Yu Haoran's order, the 4th-grade martial master guard hurriedly rushed to the Huang family's residence, scared witless. Yu Haoran coldly glanced at the pale-faced 7th-grade martial master guard who was sitting on the ground. Yu Haoran suddenly let out a gentle laugh and closed his eyes. While adjusting his breathing, he silently counted down. 3, 2, 1. After a minute, not only did the Huang family's patriarch not appear, not even a high-ranking member of the Huang family appeared. Yu Haoran suddenly smiled happily. Soon after, he appeared beside the 7th-grade martial master guard and grabbed him by the neck. Then, he carried him towards the Huang family's residence in the inner city. Quickly inform the higher-ups of the family. The Huang family is about to undergo a great change. A martial dominator realm expert from the Gui family immediately ordered his subordinate. Let's go, quickly return to the family and inform the patriarch to prepare to annex the Huang family. An elite disciple from the Feng family ordered the martial dominator realm expert who was protecting him. As Yu Haoran slowly walked towards the Huang family's residence, the Guangling city, which had been peaceful for nearly 100 years, suddenly began to move. In his previous life, he had interacted with the Huang family more than once. He knew the exact location of the Huang family's residence. Thus, without needing anyone to guide him, Yu Haoran arrived at an extremely spacious and majestic residence after passing through a few streets in the outer city. Put him down. Just when Yu Haoran was 30 meters away from the Huang family's residence, a peak 9th-grade martial king who was in charge of guarding the residence's entrance loudly shouted at him. At the same time, the peak 9th-grade martial king rushed over like a gust of wind. Boom! Waving the purple rod in his hand, he directly killed the peak 9th-grade martial king who was rushing over. Yu Haoran raised his head and glanced at the Huang family's residence. A trace of cold light flashed through his eyes. He directly threw the 7th-grade martial master guard to the side and began to activate the ancestral witch's body. Soon after, under the gazes of the crowd, the originally only 7 meters tall scholarly youth quickly turned into a towering giant that was nearly 1,000 meters tall. Chapter 959. Guangling City, in front of the Huang family's mansion. Seeing Yu Haoran transform into a 1,000-meter-tall giant, a look of understanding flashed across the face of a peak 3rd-grade martial saint. His voice was filled with incomparable excitement. I know who this young man in front of me is. Who is it? Because he was too agitated, the voice of the peak 3rd-grade martial saint was not low. Everyone within 100 meters of him could hear him clearly. He is Yu Haoran, Yu Zhaoshi, who swore on the heavenly law to kill 11 quasi-exalt level beasts in the Hengduan mountain range in order to avenge the elites of the human race. The peak third-grade martial saint expert said with respect in his eyes. So it is Grandmaster Yu. No wonder he would attack the Huang family. The white-haired old man who had lost both his arms was filled with admiration and excitement. After all, when the heavenly law had told Yu Haoran about the blood oath, it had specifically mentioned the reason why the blood oath was formed. Therefore, in the minds of most ordinary cultivators in the southern region, Yu Haoran was a benevolent person who could not bear to see injustice in the world. Yu Haoran, who had completely activated his ancestral witch body, did not realize that at the moment when everyone guessed his identity, an invisible special force slowly floated out from everyone's body and slowly merged into his sea of consciousness. Bending his legs slightly, Yu Haoran was about to soar into the sky and give the Huang family's mansion a blow to the sky when suddenly, a deep and powerful voice came from the Huang family's mansion. Sinful, sinful. Grandmaster Yu, you have graced my Huang family with your presence. This old man should sweep the streets and welcome you. Accompanied by a deep and powerful voice, an old man who was around 60 years old and wore luxurious clothes quickly rose into the sky from the Huang clan's mansion. After that, he stopped at the same level as Yu Haoran's line of sight, and spoke with an apologetic tone. But this old man suddenly had an epiphany. The family's experts were all guarding this old man, so they neglected Grandmaster Yu. I hope Grandmaster Yu can forgive us. Old man, this is the reason why your Huang family looks down on me, Yu Haoran. After a first tribulation quasi-martial venerable expert entered a state of enlightenment, his strength would either increase by leaps and bounds or he would be lucky enough to pass the second tribulation. However, the aura of the old ancestor of the Huang family was stable, and there were no signs of him being enlightened. This made Yu Haoran's heart burn with rage. If you found a more reasonable excuse, even if you directly said that you didn't know his identity and ignored him, he could still reluctantly accept it. But with such an excuse, it was clear that the old ancestor of the Huang family was looking down on him. Or perhaps, the reputation that he had accumulated wasn't enough to make the old ancestor of the Huang family fear him. Thinking of this, Yu Haoran's slightly bent legs suddenly exerted force, and then directly soared into the sky. Yu Haoran roared when he reached his limit and began to descend. Skyward strike. Yu Haoran directly soared into the sky and planned to use the staff technique, which made the old ancestor of the Huang family panic. Although he did not personally witness the process of Yu Haoran exterminating the quasi-martial venerable realm exotic beast in the Hengduan mountain range, he knew that Yu Haoran, who had transformed into a giant, possessed terrifying strength from the narration of the family's martial sages. Originally, he thought that with the Huang family's influence in the southern region and the fact that he was a first tribulation quasi-martial venerable expert, Yu Haoran would more or less give him some face. Then, he would symbolically take out some compensation to give Yu Haoran enough face. This way, both parties would be able to bury the grudge between them. Therefore, the excuse he used to deal with Huang Xiaolong seemed so casual. However, he never thought that Yu Haoran would be so narrow-minded, choosing to directly attack him after a disagreement. After hearing Yu Haoran display the terrifying staff technique that killed the quasi-martial venerable realm exotic beast, the old ancestor of the Huang family sternly shouted, "Hurry up and activate the family's defensive formation." After hearing the old ancestor's shout, all the martial sages of the Huang family hurriedly scattered around the mansion. Then, they mobilized all their soul power and yuan qi, activating the defensive formation while increasing its power. Uncle Cho, it seems that your efforts have been wasted. In the backyard of the Huang family mansion, Huang Ziwen raised his head to look at Yu Haoran, who had transformed into a giant, then turned his head to Cho Rinping, and said with a bitter smile, "Sigh." After hearing Huang Ziwen's bitter smile, Cho Rinping could not help but sigh and said with a slightly complaining tone, "Third young master, After knowing that Yu Haoran had successfully exterminated the quasi-martial Venerable Realm exotic beast in the Hengduan mountain range, I knew that he would definitely head to Guangling City. Because of this, I even specially reported to the clan leader and asked him to order the guards guarding the city gates to be discerning. But what happened in the end? Looking at the abandoned 7th grade martial master guarding the city, Chou Renping could not help but shake his head. Uncle Chou, do you think that Yu Haoran will let our Huang family go? Huang Ziwen asked worriedly as he raised his head to look at the purple rod that was about to hit the Huang family's defensive formation. Third young master, I do not know. Chou Renping's face was also filled with worry as he replied. Boom! Just as the purple rod heavily hit the defensive formation, the entire Guangling city suddenly resounded with a deafening roar. The defensive formation that had gathered the strength of a quasi-martial venerable and 19 martial sages had already reached the peak of the 4th rank. The power of the skyward rod was not enough to break the formation's defense. Thus, accompanied by the deafening roar, the strong rebound force directly bounced Yu Haoran back into the air. Feeling that the power that had hit the defensive formation was not as terrifying as the rumors said, a trace of doubt flashed across the Huang family ancestor's face. Then, he used his divine sense to ask the martial sage, who had watched the battle between Yu Haoran and the quasi-martial venerable in the Hengduan mountain range. Huang Heng, was the rod technique that Yu Haoran used to kill the quasi-martial venerable in the Hengduan mountain range? Reporting to the ancestor, it was the skyward rod that he used just now. Huang Heng, who was recovering his soul power and Yuan Li with the help of elixirs, quickly replied. It seems that Yu Haoran was able to successfully kill the quasi-martial venerable in the Hengduan mountain range. The true method was not the fist technique and the rod technique, but the formation that could condense 12 demons. With Huang Heng's confirmation and the battle that had happened in the Hengduan mountain range, a self-righteous thought gradually emerged in the Huang family ancestor's mind. Now, without the assistance of the formation that could condense 12 demons, Yu Haoran will not be able to display the strength of a quasi-martial venerable. Then, if I can defeat Yu Haoran, not only will I gain a great reputation, but I will also be able to intercept a portion of the Hengduan mountain range's fate. Chapter 960. Guangling City, Huang Family Residence. Raising his head and seeing Yu Haoran rebounding into the air with a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, the Huang family ancestor's gaze immediately became firm. Subsequently, he handed over the control of the formation to the Huang family patriarch, Huang Baohua. Then, he directly appeared in the air above the Huang family residence and took out a superior-grade Sage Realm sword. He looked like he was going to fight Yu Haoran alone. Ancestor is mighty! Ancestor is mighty! Ancestor is mighty! Seeing that the Huang family ancestor was going to fight Yu Haoran alone, the Huang family disciples in the residence immediately cheered excitedly. Ancestor is taking too much of a risk. Looking at the ancestor who had rushed out of the defensive formation, Huang Ziwen said with a gloomy face. This was because Huang Ziwen, who had seen Yu Haoran's means, knew that the staff attack was not his strongest move. His true trump card was to be able to break down and evolve the power of the law of his opponent's life. If the staff attack could not win, Yu Haoran would directly use the secret technique to display the law of time. Without the protection of the defensive formation, the ancestor would really be in danger. Don't go. Chou Renping shook his head and stopped Huang Ziwen, who was about to leave the defensive formation and go to warn the ancestor. Sky-facing staff. The sky-facing staff was displayed without using any secret technique, and its power was barely at the level of a first tribulation quasi-martial honorable. Therefore, while he was unable to break through the defensive formation, he was also slightly injured due to the rebound force of the powerful force. However, when he saw that the Huang family ancestor had taken the initiative to leave the defensive formation and was going to fight him alone, Yu Haoran, who was rebounded into the air, could not help but sneer. After directly activating the secret technique of the witch ancestors' bloodline inheritance and regaining the powerful power to kill the quasi-martial honorable realm strange beast in the Hengduan mountain range, Yu Haoran continued to display the sky-facing staff. Sky-soaring sword Qi. Upon hearing Yu Haoran's roar, the Huang family's old ancestor also unleashed an earth-rank peak sword art that was condensed from the power of laws, soul power, and elemental energy. Then, he turned into a streak of white light and directly met the purple staff that was smashing towards him. However, when he was less than 100 meters away from the purple rod, he could feel that the power of the purple rod was close to the peak of the first tribulation quasi-martial honorable realm. His face changed. At this time, he suspected that Yu Haoran must have deliberately held back a part of his strength when he used the skyward strike for the first time. His purpose was to lure him out alone and use this opportunity to severely injure him. When he was less than 30 meters away from the purple staff, he could clearly feel that the power of the staff technique had reached the peak of the first tribulation quasi-martial venerable realm. His doubts instantly turned into certainty. Therefore, just as the purple cudgel and the sword were about to collide, the old ancestor of the Huang family roared in grief and indignation. "Yu Haoran, you despicable, shameless, treacherous villain!" Boom! As the top-grade Sage Realm sword and the purple cudgel collided, the entire sky above Guangling City instantly resounded with the sound of the collision. Following the intense collision, the old ancestor of the Huang family smashed into the mansion's defensive array like a meteor. "Quickly open a gap in the defensive array and let the old ancestor in." Seeing the old ancestor quickly fall, the great elder who was worried about the old ancestor's safety immediately reminded him loudly. "Oh no!" Seeing the purple cudgel that followed closely behind the old ancestor and the gap in the defensive array, Qiu Rinping's face suddenly changed and he knew that things were not good. Then, he directly pulled Huang Ziwen and quickly rushed to the edge of the Huang family mansion. Boom! Just as the old ancestor of the Huang family entered the Huang family mansion through the gap in the defensive array, the purple cudgel that followed closely behind heavily smashed into the gap in the defensive array. Following the deafening explosion, the 19 martial sages who were providing energy for the defensive array all vomited blood and their auras instantly dropped by at least half. Gotcha! At the same time, the defensive array that protected the Huang family mansion continuously emitted crisp cracking sound. Following the cracking of the defensive array, the powerful impact of the purple cudgel directly smashed into the mansion inside the defensive array. Countless pavilions collapsed, trees and flowers that were full of vitality were destroyed, and countless cracks appeared on the bluestone paved ground. The mansion of the Huang family that had been passed down for hundreds of years was completely destroyed by the cudgel technique that Yu Haoran had just used. Looking at the home that he had lived in for dozens of years, which was now completely destroyed, Huang Baolong, who did not bother to wipe off the remaining blood at the corner of his mouth, roared at Yu Haoran who had landed in front of him with a ferocious expression. You have destroyed the foundation of my Huang family that has been passed down for hundreds of years. My Huang family will not rest until you are dead. Is that so?" Maintaining the body of an ancestral which that was nearly 1,000 meters tall, Yu Haoran looked down at Huang Baohua condescendingly and asked with a tone full of coldness. "Clan leader, shut up." However, the Huang family ancestor who had used the elixir to barely stabilize his injuries hurriedly shouted at Huang Baohua. Then, he apologized to Yu Haoran with an apologetic smile on his face. "Master Yu, please calm down. Everything is the fault of my Huang family. My Huang family is willing to compensate Master Yu for all your losses." Although he was apologizing on the surface, the Huang family ancestor was gnashing his teeth with hatred in his heart. He could not wait to directly take his sword and cut him into 1,000 pieces to relieve the hatred in his heart. However, he had no choice but to lower his head under the eaves. What he needed to do now was not to take revenge, but to find a way to send Yu Haoran, the god of death, away. If he really angered Yu Haoran, who did not care about anything, the entire Huang family's inheritance might really be broken. Coldly looking at Huang Baohua, Yu Haoran dispersed the ancestral witch's body. At the same time, he sucked in the 7th grade martial master guard outside the mansion, causing the guard to fall directly in front of him. My request is very simple. I only have 2 conditions, Yu Haoran said indifferently as he kicked the 7th grade martial master guard in front of the Huang clan's old ancestor. Master Yu, please speak. The Huang family ancestor hurriedly said. Actually, I have no enmity with your Huang family. It is impossible for me to find trouble with you. As for the conflict earlier, it was all because this person actually tried to blackmail me. Furthermore, he even used your Huang family to threaten me. Pointing at the 7th grade martial master guard, who was kicked in front of the Huang family ancestor, Yu Haoran first briefly explained the reason why he came to kill them. Then, he extended 2 fingers and said, "Therefore, my first request is that your Huang family severely punish this person. Master Yu, please rest assured. This old man will definitely let him know the taste of living a life worse than death." The Huang family suffered such a great calamity because of a martial master guard who was blinded by greed and tried to blackmail Yu Haoran. This made the Huang family ancestor so depressed that he almost fainted. Retracting 1 finger, Yu Haoran continued. Chapter 961. Guangling City, Huang family residence. No problem. In the face of Yu Haoran's second request, the Huang family ancestor agreed without any hesitation. This made Yu Haoran somewhat puzzled. After all, the treasury could be said to be the foundation of a family. If it wasn't for the fact that the family was in danger, no one would easily hand it over. However, since he had already stated the conditions, it wasn't good to continue changing them. Therefore, Yu Haoran could only ask the Huang family ancestor to send someone to bring him to the treasury to choose the treasures. "Ancestor, I'll go." Just as the Huang family ancestor was choosing the person to accompany Yu Haoran to the treasury, Huang Ziwen, who had hurried over, took the initiative to ask for instructions. "All right, then let Ziwen lead Master Yu to the treasury." The Huang family ancestor looked at Huang Ziwen approvingly and nodded in agreement. "Master Yu, please." After getting the ancestor's approval, Huang Ziwen gestured. Nodding, Yu Haoran followed behind Huang Ziwen and walked towards the backyard of the Huang family residence. After Yu Haoran left with Huang Ziwen, the clan leader, Huang Baohua, asked gloomily, "Ancestor, are we just going to let it go like this? Let it go?" The Huang family ancestor couldn't help but sneer as he muttered with a murderous expression. "Our Huang family has been in Guangling City for hundreds of years. No one has been able to leave safely after offending our Huang family." The Huang family's old ancestor instructed Huang Baohua, "Clan leader, immediately mobilize all the manpower in the city and restore the entire residence to its original state in the shortest time possible. I'm going to visit a few old friends now." "Yes, ancestor." Huang Baohua immediately replied excitedly. To be able to become the ancestors' friends, they must be quasi-martial honorables. At the same time, Huang Baohua also knew that among the ancestors' friends, there was a second tribulation quasi-martial honorable sword cultivator who happened to be in Guangling City. And that sword cultivator relied on a self-created sword technique to defeat a third tribulation quasi-martial honorable warrior. "Grandmaster Yu, I'm really sorry." After leaving the front yard and avoiding the Huang family, Huang Ziwen turned his head and said with a bitter smile, "Ziwen, this has nothing to do with you. You don't have to take it to heart." Yu Haoran could feel that Huang Ziwen's original arrogance was restrained, and that he was more low-key and humble. Consequently, his attitude became much gentler. "Grandmaster Yu, I have a favor to ask of you." Huang Ziwen also felt Yu Haoran's gentle attitude towards him. After careful consideration, he finally opened his mouth and requested. "Speak," Yu Haoran said. "When you destroy the Huang family, can you spare 4 people?" Huang Ziwen raised his head to look at Yu Haoran, and a look of longing appeared in his eyes. Frowning slightly, Yu Haoran's mind suddenly flashed with an idea. He hurriedly ordered Thaling in the victor. "Thaling, keep an eye on the old ancestor of the Huang family." "Got it." After replying, Thaling temporarily put away the formation flag that he was refining, and then spread out his spiritual sense to search for the old ancestor of the Huang family. However, when he saw that the old ancestor of the Huang family, who was supposed to be in charge of the situation, had quietly left the mansion, Thaling immediately became serious. "Who are they?" Yu Haoran asked as he motioned Huang Ziwen to continue to the family's treasury. "Me, my mother, my sister, and Uncle Cho." Huang Ziwen gave out the names of the 4 people with a tender expression. "No problem." Of the 4 people mentioned by Huang Ziwen, besides himself, the remaining 3 were not only relatives connected by blood, but also elders who were extremely indebted to him. This was enough to show that he was a person who valued friendship and righteousness. Therefore, Yu Haoran directly nodded in agreement. Subsequently, he raised his head to look at the 5th floor of the treasury that was not damaged by the residual power of the staff technique. "Grandmaster Yu, please wait a moment." Huang Ziwen secretly heaved a sigh of relief when he received Yu Haoran's guarantee without hesitation. At the same time, he began to use his own actions to repay him. 6th Elder. Huang Ziwen walked to the front of the 5th floor of the treasury and shouted towards the west side of the treasury. "Ziwen, why are you here?" After hearing Huang Ziwen's call, the entire treasury instantly resounded with an old and powerless voice. This made Yu Haoran involuntarily feel nervous. This was because he realized that as the old and powerless voice resounded, he felt as if he was being spied on, as if all of his secrets could be seen through. "Yu Haoran, don't worry." Thaling, who was also alarmed by the spying power, immediately separated a part of his spiritual sense to trace the source of the spying power. Although the expert hiding in the dark is a second tribulation peak quasi-martial honorable expert, he once suffered from the backlash of his inner demon. As a result, he can only display the strength of a 9th-grade martial saint at most. He is not too dangerous to you. After hearing Thaling's reminder, Yu Haoran secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he quietly waited for the expert hiding in the dark to open the treasury. 6th Elder, the ancestor has ordered you to open the treasury of the family and allow Grandmaster Yu to choose any treasure in the treasury. Huang Ziwen replied truthfully. "Grandmaster Yu." After hearing Huang Ziwen's reply, the 6th Elder, who was hiding in the dark, looked at Yu Haoran again and asked with a trace of doubt in his voice. "He is not even 18 years old. What qualifications does he have to be called a Grandmaster?" 6th Elder, don't judge Grandmaster Yu by his young age. He's already a Grandmaster at the pinnacle of alchemy and array formation. Huang Ziwen hurriedly introduced, afraid that the 6th Elder would offend Yu Haoran. A Grandmaster who has reached the peak of the Pill Tao. After hearing Huang Ziwen's introduction, the 6th Elder, who was hiding in the dark, suddenly asked with a heavy breath. "Grandmaster Yu, are you able to refine level 4 pills?" Yu Haoran frowned slightly. He did not know why the other party was asking about his Pill Tao level, but Thaling and the victor could not wait to remind him. Yu Haoran answered him truthfully. 3 months ago, in Xianyang City of the Emperor Qin's kingdom, I refined 3 different nirvana pills of different grades. The highest grade was level 4 pill, level 7 pill. Sensing a trace of excitement in Thaling's tone, Yu Haoran knew that not only had he discovered something beneficial to him, but he also needed to use his Pill Tao ability. Therefore, Yu Haoran used the method of example to prove his amazing skills in Pill Tao. The 6th Elder, who was hiding in the dark, asked in a trembling voice. He could even refine a level 4 pill, level 7 pill. This made the sixth elder, who was hiding in the dark, breathe even more rapidly. I wonder if Grandmaster, you can refine the scorching sun burning pill? Could it be the scorching sun burning pill that can directly burn one's inner demons and help improve one's mental state cultivation? Yuhaoran asked with a frown. That's right. The sixth elder, who was hiding in the dark, confirmed with a nod. There is a 70% chance. Yuhaoran closed his eyes and carefully recalled the formula of the scorching sun burning pill. Then, he combined it with his own experience in Pill Dao and gave his own answer. Chapter 962. In front of the Huang family's treasury. A 70% success rate. Even an alchemist who had reached the Grandmaster level wouldn't dare to give such a high success rate for a rank 4 blazing sun sky-burning pill. Hence, the sixth elder, who was hiding in the shadows, couldn't help but question. It's up to you to believe it or not. If it weren't for Thaling Li's reminder, he wouldn't have bothered with the sixth elder at all. He would have directly entered the treasury to collect the spiritual stones needed to auction off the yin-yang life soul pill. Now the other party actually questioned his alchemy skills. Yuhaoran immediately felt a little displeased and shrugged his shoulders, replying with an indifferent attitude. No, Grandmaster Yu, please don't misunderstand. The sixth elder hurriedly explained when he saw that Yuhaoran was displeased by his doubts. I'm not questioning your alchemy skills, but the success or failure of the blazing sun sky-burning pill concerns my safety, so I have to confirm it further. I heard Ziwen call you sixth elder just now, so I'll call you sixth elder too. Yuhaoran said with a slight smile, ignoring the sixth elder's explanation. Sixth elder, even if the blazing sun sky-burning pill concerns your safety, what does that have to do with me? I didn't agree to refine the pill for you. Grandmaster Yu, name your price. Due to the backlash from his inner demon and his special relationship with the Huang family, he couldn't easily leave the Huang family, nor could he obtain their help. Even if he used a secret technique that drained his life force and risked leaving the Huang family, there were very few alchemists in the entire southern region who could refine the blazing sun sky-burning pill. He couldn't guarantee that he could find an alchemist who could help him refine the blazing sun sky-burning pill in the shortest amount of time. Even if he did find one, whether or not the other party was willing to refine the pill for him was also a risk. Now Yuhaoran, who had reached the peak of the Grandmaster realm and could refine rank 4 pills, had suddenly appeared in front of the family treasury. It could be said that this was the only chance he had in his life. Therefore, no matter what price he had to pay, he needed Yuhaoran to help him refine the blazing sun incinerating pill to help him eliminate the trauma caused by his inner demons. Yuhaoran agreed to refine the scorching sun burning sky pill for him in exchange for 10 years of servitude. Thaling hurriedly reminded, as he could sense the determination in the sixth elder's tone. Thaling, what is so special about the sixth elder that you would go to such great lengths to help him? Hearing Thaling's request, Yuhaoran was filled with doubts. Furthermore, he even made such an outrageous request. 10 years of servitude was an acceptable condition for martialists below the martial master realm. However, it was an undisguised humiliation for martialists of a higher level. Moreover, he was facing a second tribulation quasi-martial venerable. There are 3 reasons. Even if Yuhaoran did not take the initiative to ask, Thaling would explain in detail. This was because such an outrageous request was directly related to his own condition. Speak. Yuhaoran closed his eyes and pretended to be considering the matter as he said, Speak. The first reason is that based on the sixth elder's attitude towards Huang Ziwen and his murderous reaction when he heard about the Huang family's ancestor, I'm guessing that the sixth elder's relationship with the Huang family is not harmonious. Therefore, even if you help him eliminate the hidden danger of his inner demons, I don't think he will take revenge on you because of the Huang family. Thaling, this reason is a little risky. Not harmonious did not mean that he did not have a sense of identity with the family. The second time he had used the heavenly staff, he had not only given the Huang family a resounding slap in the face, but he had also almost destroyed the foundation of their inheritance. If the sixth elder used the blazing sun-burning sky pill to eliminate the injury caused by his inner demons and planned to take revenge on him, it would really be like lifting a rock and dropping it on his own feet. Yu Haoran, this risk is worth taking. While Thaling nodded in agreement with Yu Haoran's concerns, he also gave the reason for taking the risk. Because I just carefully checked the sixth elder's physique, and found that he actually has the demon-subduing physique, which is ranked 14th among thousands of special physique. Could it be that he has the demon-subduing physique that can subdue dragons and tigers, and that he has the demon-subduing physique to become an ancient demon god? When Yu Haoran heard the Tower Genie mention the sixth elder's special physique, the detailed information of this physique flashed through his mind. That's right. While nodding to confirm, Thaling continued. Moreover, the sixth elder does not know about his special physique, so he has not really activated the real advantage of the demon-subduing physique. Therefore, with 10 years of servitude, you can use the means of activating the demon-subduing physique to gain his loyalty. In this way, you will have a powerful helper who is not inferior to Wu Xingjun in the future martial arts expeditions. I understand. Nodding, Yu Haoran finally understood why Thaling wanted him to take the risk. The third reason is that I am about to enter a state of deep sleep, Thaling said after thinking for a while. Thaling, why are you suddenly entering a state of deep sleep? Hearing that Thaling was about to enter a state of deep sleep, Yu Haoran immediately panicked and asked, "Could it be that your soul body is seriously injured?" Yu Haoran, don't worry, I'm fine. Hearing the concern in Yu Haoran's panicked tone, Thaling was deeply gratified and hurriedly comforted him. Thaling's explanation did not really put Yu Haoran at ease, and he still asked anxiously, "Since you are fine, why do you need to enter a state of deep sleep?" After a period of recovery, my soul body is about to enter the realm of Emperor Wu, so I need to enter a state of deep sleep to achieve the transformation of my soul body, Thaling explained with a smile. That's good, that's good. It turned out that his soul body was about to enter the realm of Emperor Wu. After hearing Thaling's true state, Yu Haoran secretly heaved a sigh of relief, and at the same time, his heart was suddenly filled with endless joy. Regardless of whether it was to a warrior or a weapon spirit, there was a fundamental difference between the realm of martial honor and the realm of Emperor Wu. The difference in strength between the two was like the difference between heaven and earth, and it was impossible to accurately describe it. If Thaling could successfully restore his soul body in the realm of martial sage, it would be of great help to him, so Yu Haoran was sincerely happy for him. However, Thaling's next words caused the endless joy in his heart to instantly fall to the bottom of the valley. Yu Haoran, since I am recovering my realm before I was severely injured, and not breaking through the realm of Emperor Wu, the time I need to enter a state of deep sleep will be longer. Approximately how long will it take? Yu Haoran immediately asked nervously. Chapter 963. In front of the Huang family's treasury. The next 3 to 5 years would be the most important period of Yu Haoran's cultivation. Thaling didn't want to fall into a deep sleep because of the recovery of his realm, and thus miss out on witnessing his growth. However, with the help of the enormous life force he obtained from Gong Yuan's tortoise shell, Victor's injuries gradually began to recover. The gradual recovery of his body also led to the recovery of his soul. Moreover, this recovery wasn't under his control at all, so he had no choice but to fall into a deep sleep for a period of time. Thaling, is there any way to speed up my awakening? After more than a year of contact, Thaling was not only a great teacher on his cultivation path, but also a guardian during his training. This made Yu Haoran accustomed to Thaling's existence. Suddenly losing Thaling's help made him feel a little lost. Not to mention 1 to 2 years, even 1 to 2 months was incomparably long in Yu Haoran's eyes. Therefore, unable to accept such a long wait, the first thing he thought of was how to reduce the time Thaling was in a deep sleep. An enormous amount of life force. At the same time, he didn't want to lose Thaling, who had witnessed Yu Haoran's continuous growth, because of too much sleep, so he immediately gave him a way to reduce the time he was in a deep sleep. I understand. Clenching his teeth and nodding secretly, Yu Haoran knew that there would be another mission in his training process. Yu Haoran, now that the Heavenly Tao's rules are gradually being perfected, a martial venerable is about to be born, and I will soon fall into a deep sleep, so I won't be able to help you for the time being. Seeing that Yu Haoran was able to accept the news that he was in a deep sleep, Thaling changed the topic to the sixth elder. Therefore, the sixth elder, who has the demon-subduing physique and can continuously break through in a short period of time, will be the expert to protect you during my deep sleep. Thaling, thank you. Yu Haoran thanked Thaling in a low voice when he saw that she had painstakingly arranged everything for him before he fell asleep. Of course, even if I have to sleep, I will wait until you have successfully broken through the martial saint realm and truly comprehended the laws of life and death before I can sleep in peace, Thaling said with a smile. He didn't want the atmosphere between them to be so sad because of the news of his hibernation. In response, Yu Haoran did not say anything. He only opened his eyes and looked at the treasury before him. 10 years of servitude in exchange for a 4th-order first-grade blazing sun-burning sky pill. After hearing Yu Haoran's request, the sixth elder, who was hiding in the dark, suddenly fell silent. However, the silence didn't last long. After about a minute, he agreed to Yu Haoran's request. Sixth elder, since you know that the blazing sun-burning sky pill can eliminate the harm caused by the inner demon's backlash, you must also know the herbs needed to refine this pill. I wonder if you have already prepared them. After getting the sixth elder's approval, Yu Haoran began the preparation work before refining the blazing sun-burning sky pill. Master Yu, I have prepared a total of 3 sets of the 72 herbs needed to refine the blazing sun-burning sky pill. While responding to Yu Haoran's inquiry, a storage ring flew out from a corner on the west side of the treasury and slowly floated in front of Yu Haoran. When Yu Haoran reached out to pick up the storage ring, the sixth elder, who was hiding in the dark, introduced himself. Also, my surname is Shen, and my name is Haokong. Master Yu, you can call me Elder Shen. Half an hour of preparation, and 1.5 hours of refining. After giving the time needed to refine the blazing sun-burning sky pill, Yu Haoran looked around and found a piece of grass that wasn't destroyed by the aftermath of the staff technique. He directly bent his knees and sat down cross-legged. While taking out the alchemy furnace, he used his mind to wake up the black bear in the beast pet space. Black Bear, I'm going to refine a kind of pill next. I can't be disturbed at all, so I need you to protect me. Yu Haoran instructed the black bear that appeared in front of him. Master, don't worry. I know what to do. Nodding heavily, the black bear maintained its huge body at its strongest strength and then vigilantly observed the surrounding environment. Closing his eyes, he carefully recalled the pill formula of the blazing sun-burning sky pill. Then, using his mind to imitate, he tested the things that needed to be paid attention to during the refining process in his sea of consciousness. As his cultivation returned to the peak of his previous life, all the alchemy cultivation and experience accumulated in his previous life were also awakened. This allowed his alchemy cultivation to reach the peak of the master stage. He only needed one chance of epiphany to successfully break through the realm of the alchemy grandmaster. Therefore, with a stronger alchemy cultivation, he only spent 10 minutes and already had an 80% chance of refining the blazing sun-burning sky pill. Opening his eyes, he took out a set of 72 herbs needed to refine the blazing sun-burning sky pill from the storage ring that Shin Hokong gave him. Through careful identification and observation, he finally familiarized himself with the grade and quality of each herb. Then, he pressed his right hand on the alchemy furnace and mobilized his energy center to drive the alchemy furnace fire. As one medicinal herb after another was thrown into the pill furnace, Yu Haoren's expression was as calm as still water. This caused Huang Ziwen to reveal an expression of worship, and it also caused Shun Haotian, who was hiding in the dark, to tense up. With the improvement of his cultivation and the advancement of the alchemy furnace fire 3 times, it took less than 30 minutes for the 72 herbs to be successfully purified into a pure spiritual liquid. Taking a deep breath, Yu Haoren withdrew his right hand from the alchemy furnace and quickly cast the solidifying pill imprint. He began the most important step of refining the pill, which was to solidify the pill. As the imprint was formed and the spiritual liquid the size of a fist was continuously compressed and purified, the temperature of the entire treasure house gradually began to rise. When the last imprint was imprinted on the pill that had shrunk to the size of a walnut and had completely solidified, the red sun above his head seemed to be pulled down in an instant, causing the temperature to rise by more than 40 degrees, forcing Huang Ziwen to step back. The process of heating the pill and dividing the pill was very smooth, but when the final pill was formed, Yu Haoren's face gradually became serious. Yu Haoren raised his head and looked at the red sun above him. He took out a few calming pills from his storage ring and swallowed them all in one go. Then, he slapped the pill furnace with both hands and let out a roar. The pill is formed. Following the shout, 9 pills that emitted scorching heat flew out of the alchemy furnace like a blazing sun. However, the 9 pills that flew out of the alchemy furnace did not stay in the air. Instead, they flew directly into the scorching sun high in the sky like moths to a flame. The overly dazzling sun made it impossible to see the state of the 9 pills. Yu Haoren could only use his divine sense to track the 9 pills. Chapter 964. In the Huang family, in front of the treasure house. Thaling, in fact, the refining process of the blazing sun-burning pill is not troublesome. The main reason why it is difficult to refine successfully is that after the pill is formed, it absorbs the fire energy emitted by the scorching sun. Shaking his head, Yu Haoren explained the refining process of the blazing sun-burning pill while replying with little confidence. So, no one knows how many pills can be formed in the end until the last moment. 4 pills. Just as Yu Haoren's reply fell, among the 9 pills tracked by divine thought, the 4th pill exploded because it could not withstand the absorption of the fire energy. In this regard, Yu Haoren did not care at all. He only knew the prescription of the blazing sun-burning pill, but he had neither refined it nor had any experience in his previous life. So the refining just now was just an experiment. It would be great if he succeeded, but it did not matter if he failed. Anyway, he still had 2 sets of medicinal materials for refining the blazing sun-burning pill. The 5th pill. The 6th pill. In less than a minute, 6 of the 9 blazing sun-burning pills flying to the scorching sun in the sky had exploded. This made Shin Hokong, who was hiding in the dark, clench his fists and made Thaling in the sea of consciousness nervous. Fortunately, after the 6th pill exploded, the remaining 3 pills had reached the limit of absorbing the fire energy. They slowly floated in the air and began to absorb the fire energy emitted from the surroundings. It seems that I don't need to continue refining. Seeing the 3 pills that were absorbing the fire energy gradually stabilized, even Yu Haoren, who did not care about the gains and losses of success, could not help but breathe a sigh of relief and muttered to himself. Then, he directly put away the pill furnace in front of him and signaled the black bear to return to the beast pet space. After waiting for more than a minute, Yu Haoren formed a seal with both hands and began the final step of collecting the pills. When the 3 pills that looked like miniature suns landed firmly in his palm, Yu Haoren carefully observed them. He discovered that although the 3 pills were only of the 1st grade of the 4th rank, Whether it was the fire energy absorbed inside the pills or the color of the pills, they were far superior to the scorching sun-burning pills refined by some alchemy grandmasters. Yu Haoran took out 2 pill bottles and placed the 3 pills inside. He raised his head and looked at the place where Shen Haokong was hiding. "Elder Shen, it's your turn." Understanding the meaning of Yu Haoran's reminder, Shin Hokong walked out from the shadows. After seeing Shin Hokong coming out from the dark, Huang Ziwen couldn't help but scream in horror. This was because the current Shin Hokong was so thin that there wasn't a trace of flesh on his body, and his face was so pale that there wasn't a trace of blood. More importantly, there wasn't any flesh on his face. His 2 eyeballs were deeply sunken into his eye sockets, making him look like a malicious spirit that had crawled up from hell. Yu Haoran had long known the damage caused by the backlash of one's inner demon, so he wasn't surprised by Shin Hokong's ghost-like appearance. He just looked at him calmly. "I, Shin Hokong, swear by the heavenly Tao that from the moment I consume the scorching sun-burning pill, I will pay the price of 10 years of freedom to become Yu Haoran's slave and protect his safety. If I violate the oath, my inner demon will be reborn, and my soul will be roasted by the fire of my heart." Yu Haoran didn't show any signs of disgust, which made Shin Hokong, who was about to become a slave, feel a little uncomfortable. He then raised his left hand and swore to the heavens. "Here." When he threw the pill bottle containing the scorching sun-burning pill directly to Shin Hokong, Yu Haoran took out more than 10 top healing pills from his storage ring and gave them to him at the same time. After using the scorching sun-burning pill to eliminate the damage caused by the backlash of the inner demon, Elder Shen, don't rush to try to break through the heart tribulation. Finally, use these healing pills to return to the peak state, and then try to break through the realm. Thank you for your reward, Master. This old slave will remember it. After raising his hand to take the pill bottle containing the scorching sun-burning pill and the healing pills, Shin Hokong thanked him with a little excitement. "Elder Shin, I'm supposed to be a slave for 10 years, but in fact, I'm just a bodyguard." When he heard Shin Hokong's grateful address, Yu Haoran couldn't help but frown, and then said sincerely, "Actually, in my heart, Yu Haoran, Elder Shin is not only a powerful senior, but also an elder who will protect the progress of the younger generation. So, in the future, I'll call you Elder Shin, and you can just call me Haoran." Looking up at the sincerity in Yu Haoran's eyes, Shin Hokong, who originally wanted to refuse, finally nodded in agreement. Then, he pointed to the treasury behind him and said, "Haoran, although I don't know why Huang Rengui is willing to open the treasury and let you choose the treasures in the treasury, as the guard of this treasury, I can tell you very clearly. The real treasure of the Huang family is not in the treasury in front of you, but in Huang Rengui's storage ring." After hearing Shin Hokong's reminder, Huang Ziwen's expression changed, and he quickly looked up at Yu Haoran. Fortunately, Yu Haoran's expression was very calm, and he didn't show any anger or dissatisfaction because of Shin Hokong's reminder. "Elder Shin, the reason why I took a detour to Guangling City is because of the auction held by Earthly Paradise. My goal is to buy the waste pill of the Yin-Yang Life Soul Elixir and use it to deduce the formula of the Yin-Yang Life Soul Elixir." Faced with Shin Hokong's reminder, Yu Haoran explained indifferently, "So, what I'm really interested in is the large number of spiritual stones in the treasury, not those exceptional treasures." "I see." Nodding to show that he understood, Shin Hokong waved his hand to open the door of the treasury, and then said to Yu Haoran, "Haoran, collect the spiritual stones first. I need to use the blazing sun-burning elixir to eliminate the remaining inner demons in my body as soon as possible. Don't worry about me, Elder Shin. Go do your own things first." Nodding, Yu Haoran beckoned to Huang Ziwen, and then stepped into the first level of the treasury. Although the 5 families shared the resources of Guangling City, they still accumulated a large amount of cultivation resources under their inhumane exploitation. Looking at the rows of spiritual stones on the wooden shelves in front of him, Yuhaoran made a rough estimate. The total number was about 20 billion level 9 first-grade spiritual stones. As one of the top 3 chambers of commerce in the Tianxian continent, the Yin-Yang Life Soul Elixir couldn't be the only treasure in the auction. Perhaps there would be other treasures that would interest him, so it wouldn't be wrong to prepare more spiritual stones in advance. Releasing all his divine thought, he swept up all the spiritual stones on the first level of the treasury, and then stored them in the victor. Although his main goal was the spiritual stones, Yuhaoran was also interested in the treasures stored on the other levels. Therefore, after collecting the spiritual stones on the first level of the treasury, Yuhaoran walked to the second level of the treasury and asked Huang Ziwen, who was following beside him. Chapter 965. In the Huang family treasury. Master Yu, it's not that I want to hide it from you, but the sixth elder's existence is taboo in the Huang family. Hearing Yuhaoran asking about Shin Hokong, Huang Ziwen smiled bitterly. In the entire Huang family, no one knows about the sixth elder's situation except for the ancestor. Even my father, who is the current patriarch, doesn't know. You don't know anything? As the guardian of the family treasury, he would definitely attract the attention of the Huang family. He didn't believe that no one had investigated Shin Hokong. Ever since my uncle, who was originally the Huang clan's patriarch, was killed by the ancestor in front of all the clansmen for secretly investigating the sixth elder's matter, no one dared to investigate the sixth elder's matter. Huang Ziwen continued to speak with a bitter smile. Then forget it. Seeing the relationship between Shin Hokong and the Huang family's ancestor, it might involve a big secret. With Huang Ziwen's status, it was normal that he didn't know. Therefore, Yuhaoran didn't continue to ask. Instead, he looked up at the elixirs and various herbs placed on the second floor of the treasury. His divine sense swept across the hundreds of different types of elixirs on the wooden shelves. He found that most of them were low-grade elixirs that were of no use to him. His attention shifted to the different types of herbs. As Guangling City was not far from the Hengduan mountain range, the disciples and experts of the Huang family basically went to the Hengduan mountain range for training. Therefore, the elixirs collected on the second floor of the treasury were not only numerous, but also of good quality. Therefore, Yuhaoran didn't choose carefully. He used his divine sense to sweep up all the herbs and sent them all into the victor. Then, he let Faling classify and record them to save time. Then, he stepped onto the third floor of the treasury. In addition to countless exotic flowers and herbs, the Hengduan mountain range also had a large number of precious ores and refining materials. Therefore, Yuhaoran focused on the magic weapons on the stone platform on the east side of the treasury, while Faling checked the refining materials with his divine sense. Although there were not many high-grade celestial devices on the third floor of the treasury, for Yuhaoran, who urgently needed to improve the grade and power of the bell, the large number of celestial devices of the Zong realm and King realm was what really made him ecstatic. 39 middle-grade Zong realm magic treasures and 32 high-grade Zong realm magic treasures. Including the Zong realm magic treasures he obtained from the Four Symbols Sect's treasury and the storage magic treasures he obtained from killing various opponents, he finally had 99 middle-grade and high-grade Zong realm magic treasures. He put away the 198 mid-grade and high-grade Grandmaster Realm magic tools into a storage ring, and then he followed the instructions of the Pagoda Spirit and put away the dozens of refining materials that he had taken a fancy to. Then, he continued to step onto the fourth floor of the treasury. In the Four Symbols Sect's treasury, when he received the inheritance of the Heaven Punisher demon Venerable and decided to create his own cultivation method and martial skills, Yuhaoran had decided to collect a large number of cultivation methods and martial skills to increase his experience so that it would be easier for him to create his own cultivation method and martial skills. Therefore, after a rough inspection with his divine sense, Yu Haoran directly put away nearly 1/5 of the cultivation method and martial skills, then turned around and went straight to the 5th floor of the treasury. However, Yu Haoran only stayed on the 5th floor for less than 5 seconds before he turned around and went back to the 4th floor of the treasury. He planned to go up the stairs and leave the treasury. Just as Shin Hokong had said, the most precious treasures of the Huang clan were all in the Huang clan's ancestors' storage space. Therefore, the 5th floor of the treasury, which was supposed to store precious treasures, was empty. Ziwen, take your mother, sister, and Elder Cho and leave the Huang clan quickly. When he reached the 1st floor of the treasury, Yu Haoran suddenly stopped in his tracks. After being stunned for about a minute, he instructed Huang Ziwen. Master Yu, is there no possibility of reconciliation? Huang Ziwen was unwilling to give up the superior life in front of him, so he gritted his teeth and pleaded. I can let the Huang clan go, but your ancestor doesn't intend to let me go, Yu Haoran said with a cold smile as he shook his head. Although they had entered the treasury that could block divine sense, Thaling was still able to use his powerful divine sense to monitor the Huang clan's ancestors' every move. Thaling had just told him that the Huang clan's ancestor had invited 3 quasi-martial honorables, and they were quickly returning to the Huang clan. Moreover, one of them was a sword cultivator who had reached the peak of the 2nd tribulation realm. At this time, the Huang clan's ancestor had invited 3 quasi-martial honorables to the Huang clan. There was no need to think too much about what his motive was. Therefore, Yu Haoran knew that he was going to start a massacre. Master Yu, before we leave, Ziwen has a request. Yu Haoran's helpless explanation made Huang Ziwen, who knew the ancestor's character well, know that the ancestor was probably the one who had started the conflict. He also knew that the enraged Yu Haoran would definitely not be merciful. However, not only did he have deep feelings for the Huang clan that he had lived in for over 20 years, he also had many brothers and sisters who were on good terms with him. These people were all innocent, so he hoped that Yu Haoran would be merciful and let them go. Ziwen, although I, Yu Haoran, am a person who pays particular attention to revenge for the smallest grievance, I am not a bloodthirsty madman. Other than your Huang clan's ancestor, I will not take the initiative to harm anyone else. Yu Haoran nodded his head and guaranteed Huang Ziwen's request. Then, his tone changed as he looked directly at Huang Ziwen and asked, Ziwen, do you know why I want you to leave Guangling City as soon as possible? Shaking his head, Huang Ziwen indicated that he did not know. You have seen my Yu Haoran's methods. No matter how many experts your Huang clan's ancestor invites to help, the result will be defeat and death. Nodding his head, Huang Ziwen agreed with Yu Haoran's seemingly arrogant but actually very modest words. The reason why the Huang clan is able to become one of the 5 great clans of Guangling City and occupy nearly 20% of the territory is not because of the kindness between the other 4 great clans, but because of your ancestors' strength at the peak of the 1st tribulation quasi-martial realm. As he walked out of the treasury, Yu Haoran continued to explain. If your ancestor dies at my hands today, then the Huang clan, which has lost the protection of a 1st tribulation quasi-martial saint, will immediately become a fat piece of meat in the eyes of the other 4 great clans. Therefore, they will definitely not let go of the opportunity to exterminate your Huang clan. Nodding his head to indicate that he understood, Huang Ziwen immediately cupped his hands and bid farewell. Master Yu, goodbye. Chapter 966. In the Huang family. Seeing Huang Ziwen turn and leave, Yu Haoran thought of his arrogance when they first met. He knew that he would not be able to adapt to the life of a vagrant because he had hurriedly escaped from Guangling City. If he was not careful, he might offend someone he could not afford to offend. Considering all the good deeds Huang Ziwen had done just now, Yu Haoran decided to be a good person for once as he spoke to Huang Ziwen's back. Huang Ziwen stopped in his tracks and immediately felt tears welling up in his eyes. Master Yu, No matter what happens to the Huang family, Ziwen does not hate or resent you. Huang Ziwen said calmly without turning back. Then, he quickened his pace and left to find Xiao Renping, who had been prepared in advance. After Huang Ziwen left, Yu Haoran spread out his mind and checked carefully. He found that the Huang family ancestor, who had returned to the Huang family, did not immediately bring the 3 experts to find trouble with him. Instead, he had arranged for the Huang family's 18 martial sages to lead a group of martial kings and martial kings to surround the entire Huang family. Yu Haoran could not help but laugh coldly at this. He then raised his head to look at the west side of the treasury and asked, "Elder Shen, how are your injuries?" "My inner demon has been eliminated, but my injuries are difficult to recover." Shen Haokong, who had walked out from the shadows, looked much better than when they had first met, both in terms of appearance and physique. "Can you make a move?" Yu Haoran asked. "I can barely display the strength of a first tribulation quasi-martial honorable," Shin Haokong replied truthfully. "In that case, you should continue to recover from your injuries." Yu Haoran shook his head and instructed with some disappointment. Originally, he had thought that Shin Haokong, who had eliminated his inner demon, would be able to display the strength of a second tribulation quasi-martial honorable. This way, he would first delay the second tribulation quasi-martial honorable sword cultivator. Then, he would use the secret technique of the Witch Ancestor's bloodline and the Monkey Emperor's staff technique to kill the Huang family ancestor and the other 2 first tribulation quasi-martial honorable experts. After all, with the Thaling about to fall into a deep slumber, he would lose the power of the laws of time as a scar and blossoms curtain. Therefore, he wanted to get used to not having these 2 trump cards in advance. "Haoran, what's going on?" Yu Haoran's slightly disappointed command made Shin Haokong frown slightly. While interrogating, he didn't need to continue suppressing the backlash of his inner demon. He immediately scanned the entire Huang family and discovered the actions of the Huang family's ancestor. Then, he said with a gloomy face and a murderous tone, "Damn it! Could it be that Huang Rengui intends to break his oath and attack me in advance? Elder Shen, this has nothing to do with you. The old ancestor of the Huang family is targeting me." Shin Haokong's furious rebuke just now revealed that there was an unusual secret between him and the old ancestor of the Huang family. This piqued Yu Haoran's interest and he couldn't help but ask, "Elder Shin, what's going on between you and the old ancestor of the Huang family?" Lifting his head and looking at Yu Haoran, Shin Haokong looked a little sad and pleaded, "Haoran, this concerns my privacy. Can you keep it a secret?" "Sure." Yu Haoran immediately replied with a magnanimous attitude, nodding his head. Then, his consciousness contacted Thaling in the Sea of Consciousness and Yu Haoran discussed. "Thaling, it seems that I'll have to trouble you to perform the possession technique. To investigate the secret of Shin Haokong," Thaling asked with a smile as he nodded his head in agreement. "Not only do I want to understand the secret between Shin Haokong and the old ancestor of the Huang family, but also to deal with the second tribulation quasi-martial honorable sword cultivator." Yu Haoran secretly nodded his head and replied, "Is the sword cultivator very powerful?" Thaling could not help but ask as he could hear the seriousness in Yu Haoran's tone when he mentioned the second tribulation quasi-martial honorable sword cultivator. Very powerful. Yu Haoran scanned the Huang family with his mind and saw that the old ancestor of the Huang family still had no intention of attacking. He then explained the sword cultivator's background in detail. This person's name is Feng Yongyuan and his nickname is the Sword Without Trace. He was able to defeat a third tribulation quasi-martial honorable expert with his self-created the Sword Without Trace sword technique. The Sword Without Trace, Feng Yongyuan. Although he was not as famous as the top 10 rogue cultivators, he was also a famous expert in the Tianxian continent. In particular, His amazing talent in swordsmanship had attracted the attention of the master of the underground palace of the Yushu Temple, who had personally come forward to recruit him. Although Feng Yongyuan had rejected the invitation of the master of the underground palace, it was enough to show his strength and amazing talent in swordsmanship. "Leave it to me." After hearing Yu Haoran's introduction, Thaling performed the possession technique and signaled to Yu Haoran at the same time. "Sorry to trouble you." After thanking him, Yu Haoran walked towards the front yard of the Huang family mansion. He planned to take the initiative to face the old ancestor of the Huang family and the 3 quasi-martial honorables that he had invited. Seeing Yu Haoran walking towards the front yard, Shin Hokong hesitated for a moment. In the end, he let out a long sigh and immediately followed after him. "Master Yu, how was your trip to the treasury?" When the old ancestor of the Huang family, who was chatting with Feng Yongyuan and the other 2 experts, saw Yu Haoran appear in the front yard, a cold light flashed in his eyes. Soon after, a smug smile appeared on his face, and his tone was filled with provocation. "Yes, I am very satisfied." Looking past the old ancestor of the Huang family, Yu Haoran looked at the old man who was emitting a sharp sword qi from head to toe. "Master Yu, let me introduce you to these 3 seniors who are famous in the Tianxian continent." When the old ancestor of the Huang family saw Yu Haoran looking at Feng Yongyuan, he became even more proud and took the initiative to introduce them enthusiastically. Snow-stepping Wind Zhao Ziyang, a famous rogue cultivator in the Tianxian continent. He once relied on the power of the law of the complete realm to fight with a second tribulation quasi-martial honorable expert for more than 10 rounds without losing. Mountain-breaking fist Gao Qinghai, a famous rogue cultivator in the Tianxian continent. He once killed 3 first tribulation quasi-martial honorable beasts with his iron fist. When the old ancestor of the Huang family introduced Zhao Ziyang and Gao Qinghai, his attitude was solemn but his tone was casual. This meant that the 2 of them were not much stronger than him. However, when he introduced Feng Yongyuan, regardless of his expression or tone, he was much more respectful. "This is Senior Feng Yongyuan, nicknamed the Sword Without Trace. He is also a famous rogue cultivator in the Tianxian continent. He once defeated a 3rd tribulation quasi-martial honorable expert with his sword." "Senior Feng, are you sure you want to interfere in the feud between me and the Huang family?" Yu Haoran ignored the old ancestor of the Huang family's introduction of Gao Qinghai and Zhao Ziyang. He looked straight at Feng Yongyuan and asked with a tinge of pity in his voice. "That's right." Feng Yongyuan nodded and replied coldly. "All right." He did not explain why he was helping the old ancestor of the Huang family. This meant that the other party did not take him seriously at all. This secretly made Yu Haoran angry. Chapter 967. In the Huang clan. Coincidentally, I also have a friend that I would like to introduce to you. Yu Haoran turned his head and shouted at Shin Hokong, who had purposely stopped behind a pillar in the corridor. "Old Shin, come out and meet your old friend." Sigh. Knowing that Yu Haoran wanted to use him to provoke Huang Rengue, Shin Hokong did not want to show himself. However, he was bound by the Heavenly Tao's oath, so he had no choice but to walk out with a sigh. "Shin Hokong, what is the meaning of this?" Seeing Shin Hokong walk out from behind the pillar, the Huang clan's old ancestor's expression changed drastically. However, Yu Haoran saw a trace of panic in the Huang clan's old ancestor's eyes. Blazing sun sky burning pill, bound by the oath. Facing the Huang clan's old ancestor's question, Shin Hokong's eyes were slightly evasive as he replied. "You have already eliminated the inner demon in your body. You can once again step into the forest of experts." Hearing Shin Hokong mention the blazing sun sky burning pill and recalling that Yu Haoran was a peak alchemy grandmaster who could refine level 4 pills, the Huang clan's old ancestor asked with a trace of regret in his eyes. That's right. While nodding to confirm, Shin Hokong looked at the Huang clan's old ancestor and said, Rengue, according to our agreement, as long as I eliminate the inner demon in my body, I can take Yu heir and leave the Huang clan. So, please return Yu heir's body to me. Hokong, wait until I settle the grudge between me and this kid, then we can discuss our agreement. Hearing Shin Hokong asking about Yu heir's body, the Huang clan's old ancestor, who was originally slightly flustered, suddenly calmed down and ordered in a tone that did not allow for discussion. Rengue, for my sake, can you let go of the grudge between you and Howren? According to the Heavenly Tao's oath, he had to protect Yu Howren's safety for 10 years. If the 3 experts invited by Huang Rengue were to deal with Yu Howren, then as a servant, he would have to lend a helping hand. However, before he got what he wanted, Shin Haokong did not want to get into a conflict with the old ancestor of the Huang family. Hokong, take a look. Shin Haokong's action of pleading on behalf of Yu Howren was not out of the expectations of the Huang family's old ancestor. Therefore, he, who was already prepared, immediately pointed at the Huang family mansion that was destroyed by the power of the staff technique and roared in grief and indignation. Do you think it's possible for me to let go of the hatred in my heart? In fact, on the way to the front yard, Shin Haokong had already discovered the damaged Huang family mansion, but he did not expect that all of this was done by Howren. So, in the face to the old, Old Shin, this has nothing to do with you. Go back and treat your injuries. Yu Howren turned to Shin Hokong and shook his head. Then, he looked back at the old and sneered. Compared to Huang Ziwen's unique vision, you have lost your sight after so many years of arrogance. Old man, just say what you want to do. Little bastard, you destroyed my Huang clan's mansion and stole the treasures in my Huang clan's treasury. Only by pulling out your tendons and peeling off your skin can the anger in my heart be appeased. Since they had already shed all pretense of cordiality, the old ancestor did not hold back any more. Come at me then. Ignoring the threat of the old ancestor of the Huang clan, Yu Howren shrugged his shoulders nonchalantly as though saying, You can make a move right now. Brother Zhao, Brother Gao, lend me a hand. He turned to Zhao Ziyang and Gao Qinghai and called out to them. Then, the old ancestor, who had taken out his natal sword, roared angrily. In an instant, he turned into a bolt of lightning and charged towards Yu Howren. As for Zhao Ziyang and Gao Qinghai, who had also taken out their natal magic artifacts, they flanked him from the left and right, forming a pincer attack. Looking at the 3 people surrounding him, Yu Howren quickly raised his arm and pointed his finger at the Huang family's old ancestor, Zhao Ziyang and Gao Qinghai. Scars of time. Scars of time. Scars of time. After his cultivation had returned to the peak of his previous life, and he had successfully comprehended the law of life and death, Yu Howren had used the Thaling soul body to increase the power of the law of time by dozens of times. Now, with the law of time, he could easily separate and transform all experts under the second tribulation quasi-martial honorable realm. Therefore, when the 3 special energy waves shot towards the old ancestor, Zhao Ziyang and Gao Qinghai, the 3 people who were charging forward were instantly rooted to the ground. Then, under the observation of Feng Yongyuan, Shin Hokong, the surrounding Huang family members, and the martial sages of Guangling City, the old ancestor and the other 2 people's bodies were instantly separated into countless pieces of flesh. When the separated pieces of flesh began to transform into their life experiences, the entire Guangling City instantly resounded with the sound of people sucking in cold air. As for Feng Yongyuan, because of the fear in his heart, he subconsciously retreated a few meters and looked at Yu Howren with a face full of horror. However, Yu Howren was not in the mood to pay attention to the terrified Feng Yongyuan. He immediately chased after the old ancestor's life experiences and looked for the secret between the old ancestor and Shin Hokong. When the countless pieces of flesh in front of him gathered back into the bodies of the old ancestor and the other two people, Yu Haoran turned his head and looked at Shin Hokong with eyes full of pity. It turned out that Shin Hokong was the same as Feng Yongyuan and the others, a lone cultivator. 50 years ago, Shin Hokong, who had just broken through to the martial sage realm, went to the Hengduan mountain range alone to train. Unexpectedly, he encountered a gale wolf that had reached the peak of the 5th grade martial sage realm. Although Shin Hokong, who had the demon-subduing physique, had the strength to challenge those of a higher realm, the difference in cultivation and strength between him and the gale wolf was too great, causing him to be severely injured very quickly. Seeing that he was about to die under the gale wolf's sharp claws, the old ancestor, who had also entered the Hengduan mountain range to train and was a peak 7th grade martial sage, suddenly appeared and saved him in time. Shin Hokong was full of gratitude towards the old ancestor for saving his life. Gu Yu, who followed the old ancestor, made him fall in love with her at first sight. Gu Yu, the younger sister of the Gu clan, one of the 5 great clans of Guangling City, was a peerless beauty with both beauty and wisdom. At the same time, she was also the wife of the old ancestor. Although falling in love with a married woman was both immoral and against the secular ethics, Shin Hokong could not control the impulse in his heart and fell in love with her. He was even willing to give up everything for her. It was under the influence of this crazy infatuation that Shin Hokong not only chose to follow the old ancestor, but also willingly became the 6th elder of the Huang clan. However, all of this was a conspiracy. Gu Yu had a pair of eyes that could see through falsehood. She could see through the talent, potential, comprehension, and special physique of a cultivator. Chapter 968. In the Huang family. Driven by envy and jealousy, the ancestor of the Huang family used the bewitching incense specially made by the Fox tribe and the wind power of the gale wolf to poison Shin Hokong with the poison of the bewitching incense. Then, he fell hopelessly in love with Gu Yu. Of course, recruiting Shin Hokong into the Huang family was not the ancestor's ultimate goal. What he really wanted was to use the Demon Path's secret method to graft the Demon Path's demonic subduing physique onto Shin Hokong's body. However, Shin Hokong, who had a goal to pursue love, seemed to have activated the demon subduing physique. In less than 10 years, his cultivation not only surpassed the ancestor of the Huang family, but also reached the 2nd tribulation quasi-martial venerable realm. It should be known that the cultivation environment 50 years ago was far from comparable to the current environment where the natural laws were gradually perfected and the spiritual qi was gradually recovering. To be able to break through to the 2nd tribulation quasi-martial venerable realm in less than 10 years in such a harsh environment was enough to prove Shin Hokong's outstanding potential and the strength of the demon-subduing physique. Seeing that Shin Hokong's strength was getting stronger and stronger and had already escaped his control, he could not graft the Demon Path's demonic subduing physique onto him for the time being. The ancestor of the Huang family was filled with killing intent. When Shin Hokong was about to break through the last of the 3 tribulations, the heart tribulation, he secretly attacked and killed Gu Yu, creating a tragic situation where he was humiliated to death. This caused Shin Hokong's emotions to become chaotic and eventually caused him to fail the tribulation, causing the backlash of the heart demon. However, what the ancestor of the Huang family never expected was that Shin Hokong, who had the demon-subduing physique, was too strong. Even if he suffered the backlash of the heart demon, he still survived with his strength. After seeing the time scars, the ancestor of the Huang family's life experience, and the various schemes and traps that were specially set against him, Shin Hokong could no longer suppress the anger in his heart. He suddenly raised his head to the sky and roared continuously. His roar resounded through the sky. Countless martial artists below the martial royal realm in the Huang family mansion and Guangling City could not help but clench their hands tightly in unbearable pain. Yu Haoran, quick, use the blazing sun-burning sky pill to help him suppress the inner demon heart fire that has re-emerged. Shin Hokong's abnormal roar immediately attracted Thaling's attention. With his powerful divine sense and rich experience, Thaling was the first to notice Shin Hokong's crisis and quickly reminded him. Elder Shin, calm your qi and concentrate. After taking out a blazing sun-burning pill, Yu Haoran appeared in front of Shin Hokong in a flash. He used his soul power to envelop his voice in hopes of waking Shin Hokong up from his rage. However, it was a pity that Shin Hokong was glaring at Yu Haoran with a pair of eyes filled with boundless killing intent. It was clear that Shin Hokong had already regarded him as the Huang family's ancestor. Although Yu Haoran was also very anxious, he did not dodge. This was because he knew that Shin Hokong would not be able to harm him under the protection of the Heavenly Way's rules. However, it was very likely that he would die under the punishment of the Heavenly Way's rules due to the backlash of the oath. This was also an outcome that Yu Haoran did not want to see. Thaling, what should we do? Seeing Shin Hokong's breathing getting heavier and his eyes gradually turning scarlet, Yu Haoran quickly asked Thaling for help. Yu Haoran, quickly retrieve Gu Yu's corpse from the Huang family's ancestors' storage ring. Under the influence of boundless rage, Shin Hokong's strength was not only increasing, but his demon-subduing physique was also constantly being activated. At this moment, Shin Hokong's strength had reached the limit of the Third Tribulation quasi-martial honorable realm. Even if he used the possession technique and took control of Yu Haoran's body, he would only be able to kill him but would not be able to suppress him. Fortunately, Thaling's rich experience allowed him to quickly come up with a solution. He immediately reminded Lin Huang loudly. Thaling's reminder reminded Yu Haoran of Gu Yu's words when the Huang family's ancestor had attacked and killed her. Gu Yu had said that she had fallen in love with Shin Hokong. He immediately understood what Thaling wanted to do. Yu Haoran's divine thought tore apart the spiritual defense that the Huang family's ancestor had left on the storage ring. Then, ignoring the many precious treasures stored in the storage ring, Yu Haoran directly took out a crystal coffin that could protect his body forever. Old Shin, take a look at what this is. Just as Yu Haoran took out the crystal coffin, Shin Hokong, whose killing intent had reached its peak, rushed over like a wild beast. He immediately lifted the crystal coffin that he had just taken out. When he saw the woman lying in the crystal coffin, the extremely strong killing intent quickly receded like the tide, and his scarlet eyes gradually became clear. Haoran, I'm sorry. Shin Hokong, who was regretful and fearful, immediately apologized when he thought of how he had killed Yu Haoran earlier. Old Shin, it seems that the inner demon in your body has persisted for too long. It has caused a part of the inner demon's energy to enter your body, meridians, and blood vessels. Yu Haoran instructed as he delivered the crystal coffin containing Gu Yu's corpse to Shin Hokong. He also tossed the blazing sun-burning sky pill directly to him. Therefore, in the next period of time, you'd better return to the Huang family's treasury and use the burning sun pill to remove all the inner demon's energy in your body to ensure that all the hidden dangers in your body are truly removed. I understand. Shin Hokong nodded as he put away the crystal coffin and the burning sun pill, then turned and returned to the Huang family's treasury. Feng Yongyuan, are you ready to die? After Shin Hokong left, Yu Haoran abruptly turned around and spoke to Feng Yongyuan with murderous intent. Since Huang Rengue is dead, then the agreement between me and him will automatically be cancelled. Feng Yongyuan glanced at the corpse of the Huang family patriarch and, secretly mobilizing all his strength, calmly spoke to Yu Haoran. Farewell. That's it? Yu Haoran, who had no intention of making a move, couldn't help but shout at Feng Yongyuan, who wanted to resolve the grudge that had brought him heavy pressure with just a few words. What else do you want? Feng Yongyuan, who had suddenly gripped the sword in his hand tightly and sent a sharp sword chi into the clouds, also shouted back. Yu Haoran took a step forward and ordered loudly, "Apologize!" He informed Thaling, who was in control of the body. "Lad, you used a secret technique to display the law of time just now. Its power is at the peak of the first tribulation quasi-martial honorable realm. I'm afraid it's still not enough to deal with me, the sword without trace." Ever since he had mastered the sword technique that could increase his power by dozens of times, even a third tribulation quasi-martial honorable realm expert would not be able to make him apologize. Therefore, when faced with Yu Haoran's order, Feng Yongyuan couldn't help but laugh coldly as he retorted, "If that's the case, then go to hell." Chapter 969. In the Huang family. Feng Yongyuan, I don't think the sword without trace is a sword skill that you created yourself. You must have obtained the manual of the crippled Zen master. After taking over Yu Haoran's body, Thaling did not rush to perform the flourishing curtain. Instead, he asked with a smile, "Who are you? How do you know about the crippled Zen master?" Although the Yu Haoran in front of him did not change his appearance or voice, he seemed to be a completely different person. Also, Yu Haoran had just mentioned the manual of the crippled Zen master. It was his biggest secret. If the secret was leaked out, not only would he lose his reputation and become a laughingstock, but he would also attract the greed of many third tribulation prospective martial honorables and martial honorables. Therefore, Feng Yongyuan, who had planned to leave immediately, questioned him with a murderous look. "It seems that my guess was correct." After getting the answer he wanted from Feng Yongyuan, Thaling nodded happily. Then, he raised his arm and shouted softly at Feng Yongyuan, "Flourishing curtain!" As a special force shot into Feng Yongyuan's body, his snow-white silver hair instantly dried up. The sharp sword aura also gradually weakened. Feeling the rapid loss of his life force, Feng Yongyuan opened his mouth, wanting to ask something, but the feeling of powerlessness made him unable to utter a single sound. "Yu Haoran, check his storage ring. See if there is a manual of the ancient style," Thaling ordered Yu Haoran after handing over control of his body. After regaining control of his body, Yu Haoran appeared next to Feng Yongyuan and took off the storage ring on his finger. Then, his strong psychic mind tore through the consciousness defense and entered the storage ring. He was shocked by the mountains of treasures in the storage ring. However, he remembered Thaling's advice. He ignored all the treasures in the storage ring and found an ancient piece of paper that looked ancient but gave him a feeling that it could tear the sky apart. His psychic mind took the ancient piece of paper and left the storage ring. Then, he entered the victor in his consciousness. What a pity! Looking at the ancient paper handed over by Yu Haoran, Thaling could not help but shake his head and sigh. "Thaling, what is this?" There were no words recorded on the ancient paper. There was only a painting, a sword painting that was very similar to his natal sword. However, it was this sword painting that made his spiritual sense feel like it was being torn apart. In the end, he could only suppress the impulse in his heart and try his best not to pay attention to the sword painting on the ancient paper. The crippled Zen master was a genius 30,000 years ago. He was a swordsman who was truly born for the sword. He was a madman who spent his entire life immersed in the art of sword. Thaling, who was not affected by the sword painting, explained with a sad expression. However, it was precisely because he was too obsessed with the way of the sword that he neglected his own cultivation of the martial way. Although he eventually created a sword technique that reached the peak of heaven rank, his life came to an end because his cultivation was too low. Otherwise, with his amazing talent in the art of sword, he might have been able to create a sword technique that truly surpassed the heaven rank and reached the god rank. Thaling, what cultivation level did the crippled Zen master reach in the end? Yu Haoran's self-created sword technique had reached the peak of heaven rank. After hearing the tower spirit's sad explanation, Yu Haoran suddenly remembered that he also planned to create his own mental cultivation method and martial technique. He was not confident that he could create his own cultivation method and martial arts technique. Therefore, he needed to regain his confidence from the experience of the crippled Zen master. The peak of the 9th level of the martial king realm, Phalanx said with admiration. What? Yu Haoran could not help but ask, wondering if he had misheard. When the crippled Zen master created the sword technique at the peak of heaven rank, he was only at the peak of the 9th level of the martial king realm. Phalanx explained in more detail. A genius and a poor genius. After hearing Phalanx's more detailed explanation, Yu Haoran admired the crippled Zen master and could not help but sigh. That's right. The tower spirit agreed. However, being able to create a sword technique at the peak of heaven rank at the peak of the 9th level of the martial king realm, the experience of the crippled Zen master gave Yu Haoran endless confidence. As for creating his own cultivation method and martial arts technique, his confidence instantly increased. Yu Haoran, after attending the auction held by the heavenly world, you'd better take some time to carefully study the sword drawings on the ancient paper. Maybe you can be like Feng Yongyuan and understand the sword technique of the sword without trace. Phalanx reminded Yu Haoran as he put away the ancient paper. Got it. After nodding and putting the ancient paper into the storage ring, Yu Haoran's mind returned to his physical body. He looked at Feng Yongyuan, who was about to die, and said sarcastically, At first, I thought you were a rare genius in the Tao of the Sword, so I didn't have the heart to take your life. But now it seems. Humph! Yu Haoran laughed disdainfully. He ignored the surrounding members of the Huang family, who were already scared out of their wits, and walked out of the Huang family mansion. According to the memory of his previous life, after leaving the Huang family mansion, he turned left and went straight to the Chamber of Commerce of the Heavenly World in Guangling City. Following Yu Haoran's departure from the Huang clan's mansion, the entire Guangling city instantly started to move in secret. The upper echelons of the Gui clan, Feng clan and Gu clan of the 5 great clans all gathered in the meeting hall and started to discuss the plan to exterminate the Huang clan. Only the Yen family, which was ranked 5th, did not show any signs of making a move. Of course, it was not that there was no movement. The Yen family patriarch, Yen Xuejuan, and the 6 elders who held real power in the family were all gathered in the room of the strongest person in the family. Father, what should we do? Looking at the pale, weak, white-haired old man sitting cross-legged on the bed, the Yen family patriarch, Yen Xuejuan, asked anxiously. Jun, what do you want to do? Opening his eyes, the white-haired old man asked weakly. Immediately send out strong people to seize the Huang family's territory. Yen Xuejuan replied murderously. Then who will deal with the quasi-martial revered experts of the Gui family, Feng family, and Gu family? Gently shaking his head, the white-haired old man continued to ask. This. Looking at his father's pale face, Yen Xuejuan originally wanted him to overdraft a part of his life force in exchange for a short time to recover his peak strength, but he gave up. No one knows a son better than his father. Although Yen Xuejuan did not say it out loud, the white-haired old man knew what he wanted to do from the greed in his eyes that he could not suppress. Although he was disappointed that his son did not care about his life, he also knew that this was the quality of a patriarch. Chapter 970. Inside the Yen clan. Jun, as the saying goes, you shouldn't do anything more than 3 times. In order to protect the foundation left behind by our ancestors, I have already used up my life force twice. Now, if I use up my life force once more, I will completely die. At this point, the white-haired old man looked straight into Yen Xuejuan's eyes and asked in a calm voice. Then, after I die, how will you face the threat of the quasi-martial revered experts from the other 3 clans? Father Jun was wrong. Hearing that his father could only use up his life force once more, Yan Shuejuan felt extremely panicked and his heart was filled with regret. Shaking his head, the white-haired old man continued to ask, Jun, even if I am lucky enough to survive after using up my life force, how long do you think the Yen clan, or the 5 clans of Guangling City, can survive? Father, what do you mean? Facing the white-haired old man's questioning, Yan Shuejuan asked in confusion. Regarding this, the white-haired old man couldn't help but shake his head in disappointment. Then, he raised his head and ordered the 5th elder, Yan Fenghua. Fenghua, I allow you to use all the spirit stones in the clan's treasury and help Grandmaster Yu bid for all the treasures he wants. Fenghua obeys. Hearing the white-haired old man's order, Jian Fenghua immediately replied excitedly. Fenghua, if you can obtain Grandmaster Yu's friendship, the position of the Yen clan's clan leader will be yours. The white-haired old man didn't care about his son Yan Shuejuan's ashen face at all. He gave an unimaginable promise. Father, why? Unable to suppress the anger in his heart, Yan Shuejuan couldn't help but furiously ask. For the Yen clan's hundreds of years of inheritance, for the safety of the tens of thousands of people in the Yen clan, are you satisfied with this explanation? Even though he was heavily injured, as a quasi-martial revered expert, the white-haired old man's powerful aura caused everyone present to feel heavy pressure. Father, as long as you don't use the secret technique that uses up your life force, you won't die. Although the white-haired old man's aura was very powerful, when he thought of the possibility of losing the clan leader's throne, the anger in his heart finally won over the powerful aura, and he angrily questioned. As long as Father doesn't die, the 3 great clans won't dare to touch my Yen clan. Then how can my Yen clan's inheritance be broken for hundreds of years? Who can threaten the safety of my Yen clan's tens of thousands of people? Seeing that his son was still unaware of the impending danger, the white-haired old man couldn't help but sigh in fear. Then, he closed his eyes and spread out his powerful divine sense. After finding the target he was looking for, he opened his eyes and ordered Yan Fenghua. Fenghua, Grand Master, you will arrive at the heavenly earth chamber of commerce soon. Go to the auction house now and invite him to the Yen family's private room. Fenghua obeys. Yan Fenghua cupped his fists and left excitedly. After Yan Fenghua left the room, the white-haired old man's gaze swept across the crowd and finally stopped on Yan Shuejuan. Then, he asked without hiding the disappointment in his eyes. Jun, you are too focused on the benefits of this tiny piece of land in Guangling City and have neglected the situation outside of Guangling City. Do you know what the real danger that the Yen family is facing now is? Old ancestor, are you referring to Emperor Qin's Northern Expedition Army? As the saying goes, the onlooker sees the game more clearly than the player involved. Yan Shuejuan, who couldn't calm down and think carefully, didn't think of the real reason why his father was trying so hard to please Yu Haoran. But 6th elder Yan Chaolin, who had a good relationship with Yan Fenghua, thought of the key to the old ancestor's question and couldn't help but say it. Chaolin is right. The white-haired old man looked at Jian Chaolin approvingly and explained in detail. Perhaps it's because I've suffered a heavy injury that I can't recover from, but I've been able to calm down and pay attention to the situation of the entire southern mountain range. I've unexpectedly discovered that Emperor Qin's Northern Expedition Army is very different from the past. Combining the news from Xianyang City and the speed of the Northern Expedition Army's attack, I've guessed that Emperor Qin's Northern Expedition Army wants to unify the southern mountain range this time. Their goal is to gather the enormous fortune of the region and help Emperor Qin, who has already passed the third tribulation, break through to the martial honor realm. After hearing the white-haired old man's explanation, all the people present, including the angry Yan Shuejuan, became silent and then carefully considered the information revealed by the white-haired old man. Looking at the heavenly world chamber of commerce, which hadn't changed much from the previous life, Yu Haoran revealed a smile of reminiscence. When he finished recalling the memory and was about to enter the Chamber of Commerce, a rush of footsteps came. Accompanied by the sound of hurried footsteps, a middle-aged man at the peak of the 9th-level Martial Saint, wearing a cloud silk robe, quickly walked out of the Chamber of Commerce and greeted him with a smile. In the morning, I saw the magpies singing in the courtyard and knew that there would be a distinguished guest today. But I didn't expect that it would be Grandmaster Yu. I'm deeply honored. Elder Bien, you're too polite. I'm just here to attend the auction held by your Chamber of Commerce. I don't mean to disturb you. Yu Haoran hurriedly responded politely. The middle-aged man in front of him was surnamed Bien and his name was Bien Xingrui. He was the first elder among the 8 elders of the Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce. His real power was not inferior to the 2 vice-presidents. At the same time, Yu Haoran also knew that in the near future, the heavenly world would encounter a drastic change. Bien Xingrui would take advantage of the situation to become the president of the Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce and lead the Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce to be on par with the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion. Grandmaster Yu, no matter you come to attend the auction or to choose the treasures you like, for our Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce, you are the most distinguished guest. Bien Xingrui was deeply satisfied with Yu Haoran's modest and courteous behavior. He took the initiative to invite Yu Haoran into the Chamber of Commerce to have a rest. But at this time, Yan Fenghua, who hurried over, suddenly stopped in front of Yu Haoran and respectfully greeted him. "Greetings, Grandmaster Yu. Elder Fenghua is too polite," Yu Haoran said with a smile as he cupped his hands in return. The Yan Fenghua in front of him was the person who had secretly told him that the Heavenly Earth Action Auction would be auctioning off a rank 3 grade 9 yin-yang life spirit pill after he had annihilated the quasi-venerable realm beast in the Hengduan Mountains. As an elder of the Yen family and an expert at the peak of the 9th-level Martial Saint realm, in the face of the opportunity in Guangling City, is your Yen family not at all interested? My ancestor said that even if a heaven-defying opportunity is placed in front of you, it is not as important as accompanying Grandmaster Yu's mission. Yan Fenghua's flattery just now made Bien Xingrui's expression change, and also made Yu Haoran fall into deep thought. Chapter 971. Kawanzhong, Guangling City, in front of the Heavenly Earth Chamber of Commerce. To be able to decisively give up the territory occupied by the Huang family, it showed that the Yan family's ancestor had not only sensed the real danger facing Guangling City, which was the coming Qin elite army, but also understood his influence on the Northern Expedition Army. If he could gain his attention, then when the Northern Expedition Army attacked Guangling City, the Yan family could not only avoid the danger of being exterminated, but also rely on their familiarity and understanding of the local situation to become the true ruler of Guangling City in one fell swoop. Therefore, it seemed like giving up the benefits that were about to be obtained, but in fact, it was to obtain more benefits and power in the future. Of course, the Yan family's initiative to express goodwill, whether it was to himself or to the Northern Expedition Army, had unimaginable benefits. Therefore, Yu Haoran's attitude towards Yan Fenghua immediately became much warmer and closer. Master Yu, Elder Fenghua, the Chamber of Commerce obtained a batch of good quality iced tea from the western region some time ago. How about you two do me the honor of tasting it? Due to the influence of their own situation, the Yan family valued the benefits of a city, while the Heavenly Earth Chamber of Commerce valued the entire Emperor Qin kingdom. Therefore, when he saw that Yu Haoran and Yan Fenghua were chatting happily, Bien Xingrui admired the Yan family's ancestors' keen eyesight and immediately did the same thing as the Yan family. Using telepathy to inform the Chamber of Commerce's deacon to receive Yu Haoran with the highest standard. After waiting for his subordinates to prepare, Bien Xingrui invited Yu Haoran and Elder Fenghua. Elder Bien, could it be one of the 7 treasures of the western region, the Snow Mountain iced tea? Hearing Bian Xingrui mention the Western region iced tea, Yan Fenghua, who had once traveled to the Western region, asked with an expression full of expectation. That's right. Bian Xingrui confirmed with a nod. Master Yu, the Snow Mountain iced tea is known as one of the 7 treasures of the Western region. Not only is the taste cold and comfortable, but it can also eliminate inner demons and improve the state of mind. After receiving Lian Xingrui's confirmation, Yan Fenghua immediately explained the origin and effects of the iced tea to Yu Haoran. He couldn't help but feel a trace of emotion in his heart. As one of the 3 major merchant associations in the Tian Xianland, regardless of financial power or overall strength, the earthly heaven was far stronger than the 5 major families of Guangling City. As the number 1 elder in the celestial being realm, Bian Xingrui had never put the people of the 5 great clans in his eyes. Even if the patriarchs of the 5 great clans came in person, he would at most send a deacon to greet them, let alone take out such a rare and precious Snow Mountain iced tea. It was all thanks to Yu Haoran that he was able to enjoy the hospitality that even the patriarch and his own ancestor could not enjoy today. Since it's Elder Bian's kind intentions, it's not good for me to refuse. It's just that I'll have to trouble your Chamber of Commerce. Yu Haoran had also heard of the Snow Mountain iced tea, one of the 7 treasures of the Western region, in his previous life. However, he had been restricted by the situation at that time, so he had never had the chance to taste this treasure that could simultaneously satisfy his taste buds and improve his mental state. Now, he was willing to make up for the regrets of his previous life. What's more, just like the Yen clan, he knew the reason why Bian Xingrui was willing to spend so much money to show his goodwill. He also knew that the celestial being realm Chamber of Commerce would be of great help to his future. Therefore, in the face of Lian Xingrui's invitation, Yu Haoran hurriedly and politely agreed. Please! Bian Xingrui was overjoyed. He quickly waved his hand and said, Elder Bian, please! After being polite, Yu Haoran stepped into the Chamber of Commerce's hall. Unlike the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion, the celestial being realm Chamber of Commerce focused more on all-round enjoyment. Therefore, the Chamber of Commerce's hall, which looked ordinary from the outside, was decorated with splendid golden walls inside. Not only were the tables and chairs used for rest made of bright red gold, but even the floor was paved with golden light stones, giving people the feeling of a nouveau riche. In this regard, Yu Haoran did not have the slightest contempt in his heart, because he knew that this was a means of the celestial being realm Chamber of Commerce. It was a way to show that one was rich enough to get any treasure in the world, so as to attract more warriors to enter the Chamber of Commerce for consumption. Master Yu, Elder Feng, this way please. After passing through the hall, passing through 3 corridors and a gate, they finally came to a luxurious private room. Bian Xingrui said with a smile. Heaven of riches and honor. Looking up at the door plate of the private room, Yu Haoran could not help but shake his head with a wry smile. No matter how rude and reckless he usually was, he had received Confucian ideology since childhood, so he had no interest in the various ways of the celestial being realm Chamber of Commerce. As Bian Xingrui pushed open the door of the private room, a unique fragrance came out. Yu Haoran could not help but frown at the same time. A trace of displeasure flashed in his eyes. Accompanied by the unique fragrance, there was a clear and melodious greeting from the private room. Welcome home, 3 masters. Through the open door, 9 beautiful young girls with delicate and beautiful faces were standing there elegantly. Although displeased, Yu Haoran knew that this was a major feature of the celestial being realm Chamber of Commerce, so after taking a deep breath and readjusting his mood, he entered the private room with a faint smile on his face. However, just as he stepped into the private room, he was attracted by a girl in white who was kneeling in front of the tea table, concentrating on making tea. He was attracted not only because the girl who was making tea had a peerless appearance that was not inferior to Qin Lingfei, but also because she exuded a special breath that could make people calm and temporarily forget their troubles. Elder Bien, your Chamber of Commerce is really generous. Pointing to the girl who was making tea, Yu Haoran sighed with an indescribable feeling. Could it be that, Master, you can see the origin of Xiang? Bien Xingrui could hear the shock in the tone of the awe-inspiring sigh. While feeling shocked, he asked with a smile. Pearl tassels rotate, stars shake, flowers tremble, dragons and snakes move. Looking at the girl in white who was not affected at all, Yu Haoran could not help but sigh. Among the thousands of special constitutions in the Tianxian continent, the sacred ghost body is ranked 21st. It seems that Master Yu not only has extraordinary achievements in martial arts, alchemy and formations, but also his own experience and knowledge are far better than most people in the world. Hearing that Yu Haoran could see the special constitution of the girl in white only by the breath she exuded, Bien Xingrui was deeply shocked and could not help but sigh. Elder Bien, the sacred spirit body is not only the best cauldron in the world, but the effect of dual cultivation is not inferior to that of the mysterious Yin body. Moreover, it has the potential to break through to the martial emperor realm. Knowing that the girl in white had the sacred ghost body, Bien Xingrui still treated her like this, which made Yu Haoran puzzled. Chapter 972. In the Chamber of Commerce. Grand Master Yu, please sit down. In the face of Yu Haoran's inquiry, Bien Xingrui did not answer immediately, but pointed to the soft couch made of cloud silk. Leaning comfortably on the soft couch, Yu Haoran enjoyed the treatment of the three girls, rubbing his shoulders, massaging his legs, and feeding him spirit fruits. At the same time, he looked at Bien Xingrui, waiting for him to tell him the reason for treating the girl in white like this. Grand Master Yu, I don't know if you have heard of the poison of ghost-devouring soul. Bien Xingrui waved his hand to signal the girl who was feeding the spirit fruit to leave for the time being. He glanced at the girl in white who was concentrating on brewing the Snow Mountain iced tea. His expression was a little sad and helpless as he asked, I have heard of it. Nodding, Yu Haoran indicated. In fact, he had not only heard of it, but also had been poisoned by ghost-devouring soul some time ago, so his memory was quite deep. Her surname is Yun, and her name is Xiang. She is the only daughter of Yun Ro, the third elder of our heavenly world chamber of commerce. As a Grand Master at the peak of Piltao, it was normal for Yu Haoran to know the poison of ghost-devouring soul, so Bien Xingrui nodded, and then pointed to the girl in white and introduced her. 19 years ago, when Elder Yun Ro went to Nanjiang to manage the branch business, she was attacked by the enemy and was poisoned by ghost-devouring soul. At that time, Elder Yun Ro was pregnant. In order to save the life of the fetus in her belly, she chose to separate her mind from her divine soul to resolve the poison of ghost-devouring soul. Completely separating the mind from the divine soul was equivalent to destroying one's cultivation, and falling from a superior to an ordinary person with no strength to truss a chicken. Yu Haoran sincerely admired Yun Ro's action to save Yunxiang's life. Using the method of separating the mind from the divine soul, although the two people's lives were successfully saved, Xiang who already had a soul, was eroded by ghost-devouring soul. As a result, although she has the ghost sacred body, which ranks 21st among the special constitutions, she is an ordinary person who can't cultivate. At this point, Bien Xingrui looked at Yunxiang with a fatherly kindness in his eyes. Although Xiang is an ordinary person who can't practice, she is still a famous pearl doted on by all of us in heavenly earth. No matter what she wants or what she wants to do, we will follow her wishes. Bien Xingrui turned to look at Yu Haoran and asked with a bitter smile. Master Yu, now you know why she appeared in the private room of the rich and noble paradise. While nodding to indicate that he understood, Yu Haoran closed his eyes and thought for a while, then opened his eyes and asked, Elder Bien, can I examine Miss Yunxiang's body? Sure. Bian Xingrui nodded and agreed calmly. Regardless of whether it was Yunxiang's sacred specter physique or her well-liked personality, ever since they discovered that she could not cultivate, the Celestial World Chamber of Commerce invited all the top grandmasters and grandmasters of alchemy in the entire Tianxian land, including the Valley Master and Great Elder from the Valley of the Medicine King. They even specially went to the Five Poison sect, which specialized in poison. But the result was that they were helpless, which also made everyone in Heavenly Earth, as well as Yunxiang, completely give up and give up. Therefore, Bian Xingrui didn't think that Yu Haoran would have a solution. Yu Haoran got up and left the soft couch, walked straight to Yunxiang, sat cross-legged and said to Yunxiang, "Miss Yunxiang, sorry to offend you." "Young master, please." Yunxiang, who had been examined by countless alchemy masters and doctors since childhood, had long been accustomed to and adapted to this situation. Therefore, in the face of Yu Haoran's reminder, Yunxiang agreed calmly. While condensing divine thoughts into Yunxiang's body, Yu Haoran also signaled Thaling to use his powerful divine thoughts to assist in the inspection. From head to toe, from inside to outside, Yu Haoran checked 3 times, and then withdrew his divine thoughts from Yunxiang's body, and then closed his eyes to discuss with Thaling in the sea of consciousness. "Thaling, tell me your solution." In the face of Yu Haoran's direct instructions, Thaling couldn't help but say with a wry smile, "Yu Haoran, I'm just a Thaling of Victor, not an omniscient true god. In the face of the infection of the ghost's soul-devouring poison, I really have no way." Frowning slightly, Yu Haoran couldn't help but ask, "Is there really no way at all?" "Indeed, there is no way at all." Thaling nodded his head vigorously. Sigh. Even the omniscient and omnipotent Thaling didn't have a way to solve Yunxiang's problem. Yu Haoran couldn't help but sigh, and a trace of hesitation flashed in his eyes. The hesitation in Yu Haoran's eyes didn't escape Thaling's eyes, and he couldn't help but ask, "Yu Haoran, could it be that you have a way?" "Yes." Nodding his head, Yu Haoran obviously said with more hesitation, "But I don't want to harm her." "What is the solution that can make you so hesitant?" Yu Haoran's tone, which clearly knew but was unwilling to say it, aroused Thaling's great interest, and he hurriedly urged, "Poison cultivator." Glancing at Thaling, Yu Haoran's consciousness looked through the boundless sea of consciousness at Yunxiang, who had already completed the tea brewing process and was preparing to pour tea for him. Yu Haoran finally told him the solution. Just by mentioning the 2 words, poison cultivator, Thaling knew that he wanted Yunxiang to use the spirit soul-devouring poison in her body to cultivate poison. But whether it was poison cultivator or talisman cultivator, at the beginning of cultivation, they all needed to absorb spiritual energy to open up the meridians in the body and open up the dantian to store yuan qi. In Yunxiang's current situation, the spiritual energy she absorbed was directly corroded by the spirit soul-devouring poison before she could open up her meridians. Then, how could she open up the path of martial arts through poison cultivator? Use a poison pill that can stimulate the spirit soul-devouring poison, and use the spirit soul-devouring poison to open up the meridians and open up the dantian. Facing Thaling's question, Yu Haoran gave a solution. "No wonder you were so hesitant just now. This method is definitely cruel for a girl. Using the spirit soul-devouring poison to open up the meridians and open up the dantian would not only make the yuan qi that Yunxiang cultivated contain poison, but also the dantian would become a poison field. That was to say, using the method provided by Yu Haoran to cultivate, Yunxiang would completely turn into a poisonous person that no one could easily get close to. For a woman, a girl at the age of 16, who had a peerless appearance and was full of infinite fantasy about love, the word cruel might not be enough to describe the consequences of cultivating poison cultivator. However, just now when he was checking Yunxiang's body, Thaling vaguely felt a trace of death from her indifferent mood. Perhaps born in a force like heavenly earth, The heavy pressure brought by not being able to cultivate was not inferior to the consequences of cultivating poison cultivator. Chapter 973. In the Chamber of Commerce. As long as Yunxiang could reach the level of Emperor Wu and merge the power of law into her body, then the way of poison would no longer have any effect on her. She would then be able to pursue her own happiness like a normal woman. Therefore, after careful consideration, Thaling felt that the choice of whether to change her fate through the practice of poison should be left to Yunxiang herself. Thaling, I hope that our decision will not bring disaster to the profound sky continent in the future. Although Thaling's long lifespan had allowed him to see a lot of things, he did not know as much about the way of poison as he did. Thaling was considering whether Yunxiang could accept the transformation into a poison person, while Yu Haoran was considering the potential threat that Yunxiang would pose to the profound sky continent after the transformation into a poison person. The poison cultivation method that he had decided to impart to Yunxiang came from one of the profound sky continent's 10 great forbidden grounds, the sacred tome of poison that he had accidentally obtained in the cloudy mist swamp. As the sacred tome of poison had very strict requirements for one's physique, although he had not been able to cultivate the sacred tome of poison in his previous life, he had still used the sacred tome of poison to reach the level of great success in the way of poison. Yunxiang, who had the deadly spirit-devouring soul poison in her body, could be said to be the best candidate to cultivate the sacred tome of poison. She was also the person with the greatest hope of becoming a venerable emperor through the sacred tome of poison. But on the other hand, it was precisely because she was the most suitable person to cultivate the sacred tome of poison that she could unleash the full potential of poison. Then, when she had reached the level of great success in the art of poison, there would be very few people in this world who could suppress her. If, by any chance, she fell into the devil's path and went on a killing spree uncontrollably, it would definitely bring unbearable disaster to the billions of living beings in the profound sky continent. Sir, please have some tea. Just as Yu Haoran opened his eyes, Yunxiang, who had already poured the iced tea, delivered the teacup to Yu Haoran in a timely manner, her voice like that of a nightingale. Reaching out to take the teacup, he carefully recalled his master's actions when he tasted the tea. First, he smelled it, then blew it gently, and then tasted it. Accompanied by the cool and comfortable feeling, Yu Haoran finally decided to follow the pagoda spirit's suggestion and let Yunxiang choose whether to cultivate the way of poison or not. Yu Haoran said as he drank the iced tea in one gulp and returned the teacup. Lady Yunxiang, I have a way to help you open up the meridians in your body and open up your dantian. In the future, you will be able to climb to the peak of the martial Tao and become an Emperor Realm Master. Yunxiang took the teacup with her left hand and suddenly clenched it tightly. Her indifferent and calm emotions instantly fluctuated violently. Her voice was trembling and hoarse as she asked, "Young Master, are you sure you aren't lying to me?" Nodding, Yu Haoran told Yunxiang how to use the spirit-devouring venom to open up the meridians and open up the dantian, as well as the consequences of cultivating the Tao of poison. Soon after, he got up and returned to the soft couch. While he closed his eyes and enjoyed the service of the 3 girls, he began to recall the scripture of poison Tao. Because when he told Yunxiang this through divine sense, he found that her emotions had not calmed down, so he could guess her final choice. Glancing at Yunxiang, who had a conflicted expression and clearly did not know what to do, then looking at Yu Haoran, who was enjoying the service with his eyes closed, Bian Xingrui opened his mouth. But in the end, he could only let out a long sigh and did not ask any more questions. Because using divine sense to tell Yunxiang alone meant that Yu Haoran did not want to expose the secret of solving Yunxiang's constitution. Even if he asked more questions, he was afraid that he would not get any result. It was not very long, only about 5 minutes. Just as Yu Haoran was using his divine sense and jade slips to record the scripture of poison Tao, Yunxiang, who had left the tea table, came to Yu Haoran and knelt down. Young master, Xiang has thought it over. If you don't become an overlord, you will always be a poisonous person. Opening his eyes, Yu Haoran asked seriously. If you don't become an overlord, you will always be a poisonous person. Yunxiang said firmly. All right. With a long sigh, Yu Haoran got up directly, motioned the 3 girls who served him to remove the tea table, and then took out the elixir furnace. Later, he instructed Bian Sheng and Yan Fenghua. Elder Bian, Elder Yan, I'll have to trouble you to leave for a while. Master Yu, although I don't know what you want to do, I will never forget your kindness to help Xiang recover. When he got up and left the private room, Bian Shengrui gave his own grateful promise. In this regard, Yu Haoran accepted it calmly. After all, Yunxiang, who practiced the scripture of poison Tao, would soon become the trump card of heavenly world, and in the future, she would become a peerless expert who would deter countless forces. The benefits he brought to heavenly world were far from being repaid by a promise. Master Yu, the auction will be held in 6 hours. Don't miss the time. Yan Fenghua, who had not forgotten the ancestors' instructions, reminded him when he left the private room. I know. After a casual response, Yu Haoran began to choose the medicinal materials used to refine the poison pills from the storage ring. It was just to stimulate the highly toxic ghost devourer in Yunxiang's body, so the quality of the pills was not high. Therefore, according to his own medicinal materials, Yu Haoran finally selected 9 kinds of medicinal materials with different kinds of toxicity. Next, it took less than 30 minutes to refine 9 poison pills. Using the pills to restore the soul and original energy consumed in the alchemy, and then motioned Yunxiang to come to him. Yunxiang, before assisting you to become a poison cultivator, I have a few words and a request. Young master, please speak. Kneeling on the ground, Yunxiang respectfully and gently motioned. Yunxiang, the poison cultivation method I will impart to you is from the Cloud Mist Swamp, one of the top 10 forbidden areas in Tianxian continent. It is called the Canon of Poison Tao. It is a poison cultivation method that surpasses the heaven rank. With the Canon of Poison Tao, you can cultivate all the way to the realm of Wu Zun and Emperor Wu, and even the realm of Martial God. So, except for you, I don't want 2 people to know the existence of the Canon of Poison Tao. Young master, Yunxiang will swear by the rules of heaven that I will never reveal any secrets of the Canon of Poison Tao. Although limited by her physique, she could not set foot on the path of martial arts, but born in heavenly world, the top force in Tianxian continent, Yunxiang had been exposed to a lot of information about martial arts since she was young. She was very clear about the level of the cultivation method and martial arts techniques, and the auxiliary role for martial arts in the process of martial arts cultivation. The Heavenly World Chamber of Commerce, which started with business, relied on its huge financial resources and accumulated countless cultivation methods and martial arts techniques for thousands of years. But the highest level was only the thunderclap cultivation method that only the president's faction could cultivate. But the level was only at the early stage of the heaven rank. Chapter 974. In the Chamber of Commerce. Yunxiang, relying on the sacred spectre physique that you possess and the canon of Poison Tao's powerful supplementary effect for poison cultivators, you will surely become a peerless expert whose name shakes the profound sky continent in the future. At the same time, because you used the Spirit Devourer's poison to build your foundation, your transformed origin energy contains poison. In a battle between opponents of the same level, no one will be a match for you. At this point, Yu Haoran looked straight into Yunxiang's eyes and spoke with an extremely serious expression. So, I request that you use the rules of the Tao of Heaven to swear that no matter what happens in the future, you will not make a move against me. Otherwise, you will suffer a backlash from the Tao of Poison and your soul will be destroyed. I, Yunxiang, swear by the rules of the Tao of Heaven that no matter what happens in the future, and no matter what my benefactor, Yu Haoran, does to me, I, Yunxiang, will absolutely not harm my benefactor, Yu Haoran, in the slightest. After hearing Yu Haoran's request, Yunxiang did not hesitate in the slightest and directly raised her left hand to swear. If you violate this oath, you will surely suffer a backlash from the Tao of Poison and your soul will fall into hell forever. Yu Haoran nodded in satisfaction at Yunxiang's decisive performance of swearing an oath. Then he took out the jade slip that recorded the canon of Poison Tao from his storage ring and gave it to her before carefully instructing her. Yunxiang, this jade slip records the canon of Poison Tao's mental cultivation method and martial skill. After you memorize the contents of the mental cultivation method and martial skill, directly destroy the jade slip. However, because she had not opened her dantian and her consciousness had not been nourished by origin energy, she was temporarily unable to read the contents of the jade slip, so Yunxiang could only temporarily put the jade slip into her sleeve. After Yunxiang put away the jade slip, Yu Haoran indicated for Thaling to use his divine sense to set up a concealment formation in the private room to prevent Yunxiang from using the spirit devourer's poison to open up her meridians and open up her dantian, attracting the attention of some people. Yunxiang, I will teach you how to use the poison pill to stimulate the ghost-devouring soul poison in your body, how to use the poison energy to open up your meridians, and how to open up your dantian. After Thaling finished setting up the concealment formation, Yu Haoran delivered the poison pill to Yunxiang while carefully instructing her. Yes. Yunxiang nodded. She took the poison pill and put it into her mouth without any hesitation. Calm your qi and focus your mind. Carefully feel the energy of the poison. Just as the poison pill entered Yunxiang's body and began to erupt with a powerful medicinal effect, Yu Haoran immediately warned. Thread of will, lead the poison into the meridians. Yu Haoran continued to remind her after the poison pill's efficacy had activated the spirit soul-devouring poison in her body. When the spirit soul-devouring poison began to attack her meridians, Yu Haoran secretly sighed in relief. He knew that there was no need for him to remind her about the rest of her cultivation. Therefore, while observing Yunxiang's cultivation process, he began to check the Huang clan's patriarch and Feng Yongyuan's storage rings. There were nearly 1,000,000 5th-tier first-grade to 9th-tier spirit stones and tens of thousands of 4th-tier first-grade to 5th-tier spirit stones. There was no need to carefully count them. He directly transferred them to his storage ring. Emperor and Emperor artifacts were categorized according to their different levels. They were also transferred to his storage ring as a source of energy to upgrade the grade of the wish bell. Precious refining materials were stored in the Victor so that Thaling could use them to refine weapons when he woke up in the future. After sorting through more than half of the items, Yu Haoran suddenly discovered a green dress that could block the prying of divine sense and conceal one's aura from Feng Yongyuan's storage ring. Thaling, what treasure is this? Yu Haoran asked as he took out the green dress with his mind. This is a very special artifact. After carefully inspecting the green dress, the pagoda spirit introduced. Not only does it have the defensive strength of a mid-level saint, but it can also block the prying of a third tribulation quasi-martial venerable. It's very suitable for Yunxiang's current state. After hearing Thaling's suggestion, Yu Haoran did not put away the green dress. He planned to wait until Yunxiang finished her cultivation to congratulate her for successfully becoming a martial cultivator. Then, he continued to check the treasures in the 2 storage rings. With the Huang clan's patriarch and Feng Yongyuan's strength, the treasures they collected were very precious. However, for Yu Haoran, who had experienced countless ruins and forbidden areas, there were not many treasures that could really catch his eye. Therefore, the rest of the treasures were all stored in the Victor. When he found a place to form his own team in the future, these treasures would be used as rewards for his subordinates who followed him. After sorting out the treasures in the 2 storage rings, Yu Haoran planned to comprehend the laws of life and death to make sufficient preparations for breaking through to the Martial Saint realm. However, a wave of energy that was not very strong suddenly attracted his attention. Damn! After opening his eyes and carefully observing for a moment, Yu Haoran could not help but slap his forehead. This was because the energy wave just now was the aura formed when Yunxiang broke through to the first-grade martial disciple realm. It had only been about 20 minutes since she used the poison pill to stimulate the soul devourer's poison and reached the first-grade martial disciple realm. The speed of her cultivation had already surpassed the speed of his cultivation with the help of his previous life's experience. Yu Haoran, you're right to be worried. Thaling, who had also sensed Yunxiang's breakthrough, finally understood why Yu Haoran had asked Yunxiang to swear by the heavenly Tao that no matter what happened in the future, she would not harm him. Without any cultivation experience or the help of the poison Tao cannon, she was able to easily break through to the next realm with the help of the soul devourer's poison. This was enough to show that Yunxiang had heaven-defying potential in the poison Tao. Yunxiang, quickly use your mind to suppress the soul devourer's poison energy and then end your cultivation. Although he was shocked, Yu Haoran knew that Yunxiang was not suitable to continue breaking through before she cultivated the poison Tao cannon. Because doing so would affect her foundation, he used the method of wrapping his soul power around his voice to directly wake her up. After calming down the surging poison energy in her body, Yunxiang slowly opened her eyes and directly stood up before kneeling down again. Bang bang bang! Without giving Yu Haoran any chance to react, Yunxiang kowtowed 3 times and shouted with an incomparably respectful expression and tone. Yunxiang greets Master. You. The reason why he spent so much effort to help Yunxiang was not because he wanted to accept her as his disciple, nor was it because he coveted her beauty. He just didn't want to waste her sacred spirit body and his respect for Yunro. Therefore, in the face of Yunxiang's act first and report later, Yu Haoran suddenly did not know what to say. Chapter 975. In the Chamber of Commerce. Yunxiang's sudden act of kowtowing also caught Thaling off guard, but his considerations were different from Yu Haoran's. Yunxiang was able to break through to the first grade of martial disciple in just 20 minutes with the help of the spirit devourer poison. This was enough to prove that Yunxiang had a heaven-defying potential in the Tao of poison. If she could become Yu Haoran's first disciple, then with the grace of fortune and the influence of the master-disciple relationship, Yunxiang would definitely become his most powerful helper on his journey to the peak of martial Tao. She would even be more useful than Wu Jingjun with his bloodthirsty physique, and Shin Hokong with his demon-subduing physique. Therefore, Thaling was very supportive of Yunxiang's decision to become his disciple. Thaling, it's not like you don't know my current situation. It's not suitable for me to open a sect and accept disciples. In the face of Thaling's persuasion, Yu Haoran eagerly refused. What's more, I don't have any intention of accepting disciples. Yu Haoran, we've been together for a long time. Although you've always insisted on practicing the orthodox martial Tao, you still haven't forgotten the Tao of poison in your previous life. In order to make Yu Haoran willingly accept Yunxiang, Thaling knew that just a few words of explanation would not work. Therefore, he began to persuade Yu Haoran from his softest flaw. Since you can't give up the Tao of poison, why not let Yunxiang, who is more suitable to practice the Tao of poison, inherit the regret of your previous life? Moreover, Yunxiang, who has the Holy Ghost physique and the Spirit Devourer poison, has a high chance of achieving what you couldn't achieve in the Tao of poison in your previous life. Thaling's method of attacking the softest part of his heart made Yu Haoran's heart move. Yes, in his previous life, he had explored so many ruins and forbidden areas, and what he had collected the most was information and treasures about the Tao of poison. With his unique understanding of the Tao of poison, and Yunxiang's heaven-defying potential in the Tao of poison, perhaps she could really achieve the wish of his previous life and become a venerable emperor of poison. Yu Haoran took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. He opened his eyes and looked at Yunxiang. With a solemn expression, he instructed, "Acknowledge a new master." Seeing that Yu Haoran was finally willing to accept Yunxiang as master, Thaling was happy for him, of course of heaven, but couldn't help but feel a little worried. After more than a year of being together, Thaling had seen too many beautiful women who had secretly fallen in love with Yu Haoran, and even pursued him. Lin Mengyao, Zhang Ro, Kong Yong'a, the Sword Without Trace, He Ruyu, Lan Xian, and Bai Yuling. Which one of these girls didn't have a peerless appearance, monstrous potential, or heaven-defying opportunities? Therefore, he was worried that in the future, Yu Haoran and Yunxiang would have a master-disciple relationship that went against the rules of the secular world. Yu Haoran, who didn't know what Thaling was worried about, returned to the soft couch he had been sitting on, sat upright, and began to accept Yunxiang as master again. "Master, please accept your disciple's kowtow." After respectfully kowtowing 3 times, Yunxiang officially became Yu Haoran's disciple. Looking at Yunxiang, who had a peerless appearance and a sacred spectral body, and thinking that she was his first disciple in both his previous and current lives, a sense of responsibility as a master suddenly arose spontaneously. Assuming the posture of a master, Yu Haoran reminded her with a serious expression. "Yunxiang, as the disciple of Yu Haoran, you don't have the rules of other sects and clans. There is only one rule that you need to remember. Once you become Yu Haoran's disciple, you can't betray your master for the rest of your life, otherwise." At this point, a strong murderous aura soared into the sky, and Yu Haoran threatened with a murderous aura. "Even if I have to go up to the 9th heaven, or down to the Een Spring Hell, I will take your head and destroy your soul. Yunxiang will remember Master's rules." Yunxiang also solemnly promised. After motioning Yunxiang to get up, Yu Haoran reminded her with a gentle expression, "When you see me in the future, you don't need to salute me like this. Master Xiang'er will remember it." Yunxiang nodded and said, "Since you have already acknowledged me as your master, then as your master, I have to prepare a few gifts." Looking at the well-behaved and obedient Yunxiang, and thinking of her heaven-defying potential in the Tao of poison, Yu Haoran felt more and more satisfied. The more satisfied he was, the more he wanted to give her the best things he had. His thoughts divided into 2, one went into the storage ring, and the other went into the victor, and began to choose treasures suitable for Yunxiang. "Yu Haoran, although I know that as your first disciple, you can't suppress the excitement in your heart, and are willing to give all the treasures you have to Yunxiang, but I hope you can remember a saying." Seeing Yu Haoran constantly choosing precious treasures, Thaling knew what he was thinking, but he couldn't help but persuade him. "Don't overdo it. This is the way of teaching a disciple." After hearing Thaling's reminder, Yu Haoran instantly calmed down. He knew that under his agitation, there was a flaw in his state of mind cultivation. Through regular breathing, he repaired the flaw in his state of mind, and began to think of a suitable gift for Yunxiang. "Yunxiang, as a martial artist, you first need a magic tool that can be used to store things. This storage ring is the first gift that Master will give you." After careful consideration, Yu Haoran finally selected 3 treasures as the gifts that Master would give to his disciple. And he also secretly decided that no matter whether he would accept another disciple in the future, there would always be only 3 gifts. "Thank you, Master." Reaching out to take the storage ring given by Yu Haoran, Yunxiang was very calm and thanked him. Born in the heavenly world chamber of commerce, she had seen and heard of too many storage rings. If it were not for her physique that she couldn't cultivate, it would not be a problem for her to have a storage ring with as much space as she wanted, so her reaction was so calm. But when her thoughts entered the storage space and saw a huge space of nearly 10,000 square meters, her face immediately showed a look of shock. Yunxiang, who was also interested in business, knew that the storage ring in her hand was worth at least 100 million spirit stones of the first grade of the 9th level. "Thank you, Master." Realizing the real value of the storage ring, Yunxiang thanked Yu Haoran again. Nodding, Yu Haoran took out the second gift, which was the cyan dress that he found in Feng Yongyuan's storage space. "Yunxiang, this cyan dress not only has a strong defense of the medium level of the Sage Realm, but also can block the divine thoughts of a third tribulation quasi-martial venerable. It is very suitable for your current special situation. This is the second gift that Master will give you." "Thank you, Master." Directly taking the cyan dress from Yu Haoran's hand, Yunxiang thanked him excitedly. Chapter 976. In the Chamber of Commerce. Seeing that Yunxiang could not wait to take the green dress from him, it meant that she was very satisfied and liked this gift. Yu Haoran smiled with relief. Then, when he was about to give the third gift he had prepared, the green dress in Yunxiang's hand suddenly emitted a dazzling green light. Because the green light was too sudden and dazzling, Yu Haoran instinctively closed his eyes. When he quickly opened his eyes and made an attacking posture, he was surprised to find that the green dress was already on Yunxiang's body. If Yunxiang, who was originally wearing a white dress, was like a fairy in the clouds, then, the green dress, which exuded a sense of mystery, set her off like a saintess in flowers, giving people a sense of holiness that could only be seen from afar and not touched. "Thaling, what's going on?" Yu Haoran asked with a frown. While he was inspecting the green dress, he used his divine sense to carefully check it inside and out, but he didn't find any artifact spirit with intelligence at all. But the green dress's behavior just now was obviously not the case. Their auras are merged and their minds are connected. As the pagoda genie re-examined the green dress on Yunxiang's body, it also searched through its memories. In the end, it sighed with envy. "Yu Haoran, I think this green dress, which can accompany Yunxiang to grow up, has an inexplicable symbiotic relationship with the holy ghost body and the ghost soul devouring poison." Hearing the uncertainty in Thaling's sigh, Yu Haoran knew that it was useless to continue to investigate the origin of the green dress. Moreover, what he was really worried about now was whether the uncontrollable green dress would bring danger to Yunxiang. "Yu Haoran, you can rest assured about this." After hearing Yu Haoran's worry, Thaling patted his chest and promised. "The green dress will not only not hurt Yunxiang, but it will also help improve her poison Dao cultivation." "That's great." Since there was no danger, Yu Haoran was relieved. Then, he handed the third gift, which was also a jade slip, to Yunxiang and warned her. "Yunxiang, due to various special reasons, I can't always be by your side and guide your cultivation at any time and place. Therefore, this jade slip contains the things you need to pay attention to in the process of cultivation, as well as some of your master's insights on the Tao of poison." "Thank you, Master." After receiving the jade slip, Yunxiang looked at Yu Haoran with some reluctance and asked with a slightly reluctant tone, "Master, can't you stay a little longer?" Shaking his head, Yu Haoran gestured to Thaling to remove the concealment formation, then stood up and said, "Yunxiang, due to special reasons, I'm afraid that it will be difficult for me to stay in one place alone for a long time in the future. Therefore, whether or not one can rely on poison to reach the peak of martial arts is more dependent on one's own hard work." And, nodding her head, Yunxiang, who was too antisocial, did not ask too much to stay. She followed Yu Haoran's footsteps and left the private room of rich and poor paradise. "Master Yu, Xiang." Seeing Yu Haoran and Yunxiang walking out of the private room, Bian Xingrui, who had been waiting outside the private room, hurriedly greeted them. "Master Yu." However, when he saw that Yunxiang, who was supposed to be in white, suddenly changed into a green dress, his face instantly became gloomy. In the case of a man and a woman alone in a room, if the woman suddenly changed her clothes, Anyone would have a misunderstanding in that regard. Therefore, in the face of Bian Xingrui's suddenly gloomy face, Yu Haoran did not care at all. Uncle Bian. Yun Xiang, who also noticed the change in Bian Xingrui's face, knew that he had completely misunderstood after a little thought. She immediately murmured with dissatisfaction, and then whispered in his ear. Master Yu, I'm sorry, I was blind to blame you. After hearing Yun Xiang's explanation, Bian Xingrui's heart was ecstatic and frightened. Ecstasy, in addition to the advantage of the Holy Ghost body and the huge wealth of Heavenly World, Yun Xiang was bound to become a famous peerless expert in the future after embarking on the road of martial arts. He also cared about the master-apprentice relationship between the two people. If the Chamber of Commerce wanted to establish a foothold and develop, in addition to the support of huge financial resources, it also needed the timely transmission of information and the support of strong backers. Yu Haoran's influence on the Emperor Qin and the fierce conflict between him and Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion let him know that Heavenly World had the opportunity to enter the Emperor Qin's country. Now Yun Xiang became the first disciple of Yu Haoran. With the master-apprentice relationship, Heavenly World's entry into the major cities of the Emperor Qin's country was not a problem, and there was a great hope to drive Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion out of the Emperor Qin's country and out of the whole southern region. He was frightened because of his indiscriminate hostility just now. He did not know whether it would cause Yu Haoran's disgust. Elder Bian, you also care too much about Xiang Er's safety, so you show hostility to me. For this, I am too happy. How can I be angry with you? Yu Haoran smiled and comforted. That's good, that's good. After hearing Yu Haoran's comfort, Bian Xingrui immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Later, he directly invited Yu Haoran and Yan Fenghua to go to the auction house, because according to the predetermined time of the auction, it should have started as early as half an hour ago, but in order to please Yu Haoran, he abruptly delayed it for half an hour. He was afraid that it had caused the dissatisfaction of the people on the scene. Master Yu, why don't you go to my Yan family's private room? On the way to the auction house, Yan Fenghua was full of expectations and invited. Elder Yan, I have already arranged a private room for Xiang Er's master, so I don't need to trouble you. However, before Yu Haoran agreed, Bian Xingrui took the initiative to refuse for him. Knowing Yan Fenghua's mission in his heart, Yu Haoran thought of the various benefits that the Yan family's goodwill could bring him. He took out a blank jade slip from his storage ring, then left behind some instructions for Lan Rong, and handed it to Yan Fenghua. Elder Yan, go back and tell your ancestor that as long as the Yan family does not betray the Emperor Qin's kingdom, and does not oppress and exploit the people of Guangling City like before, then the Yan family can continue to stay in Guangling City. After receiving Yu Haoran's guarantee, Yan Fenghua was wild with joy. He was very clear that Yu Haoran's promise in front of Bian Xingrui could not only preserve the Yan family's hundreds of years of inheritance, but also help him get closer to the throne of the family head. However, he was somewhat puzzled by the jade slip that Yu Haoran handed over. He did not know the true use of the jade slip. When the Emperor Qin's kingdom's northern army attacks Guangling City, give this jade slip to the northern army's great General Lan Rong. General Lan Rong will treat and protect your Yan family well. Yu Haoran explained the use of the jade slip in detail. Chapter 977. In the Chamber of Commerce, Yu Haoran not only promised to preserve the inheritance, but also considered the various actions of the Northern Army after they reached Guangling City. This made Yan Fenghua feel very moved. All right, Elder Yan, you should return to your family as soon as possible to tell your ancestor this news. I also hope that my promise and jade slip can help you advance further. Waving his hand, Yu Haoran left a blessing that made Yan Fenghua even more shocked. Then, he followed Bian Xingrui into the auction house. Sigh. Yen Fenghua couldn't help but sigh and mutter to himself as he watched Yu Haoran enter the auction house. Yu Haoran's blessings echoed in his ears. It seems that I have to persuade the ancestor to extinguish some unrealistic ideas as soon as possible. Otherwise, a blessing may turn into a disaster. Grandmaster Yu, this is the number 1 private room set up in the auction house of the Guangling City branch of the Celestial Society. It is reserved for the Emperor of the Emperor Qin Kingdom, the Patriarch of the Gu Liang family, and the Patriarch of the Ren family. He explained with a smile as he followed Bian Xingrui to the 3rd floor of the auction house. In front of a private room facing the auction stage below, he explained with a smile. After hearing Bian Xingrui's introduction, Yu Haoran joked, I didn't expect that in Elder Bian's heart, I, Yu Haoran, am already comparable to the 3 most powerful people in the southern region. If the Celestial Society of Commerce held an auction in the headquarters of the central region, perhaps the 3 most powerful people in the southern region would attend. But it was just a branch of the Chamber of Commerce. If not for the fact that a useless level 3 9th grade Yin-Yang Life Spirit Elixir would appear in this auction, he would definitely not come. Therefore, the so-called number 1 private room was actually just a decoration with symbolic meaning. Ha ha! Hearing the teasing in Yu Haoran's joke, Bian Xingrui could only laugh dryly. Then, he instructed Yun Xiang. Xiang you are responsible for accompanying the Grandmaster. Yun Xiang nodded and pushed open the door of the private room. After Yu Haoran entered the private room, she waved at the staff not far away and whispered some instructions. Although the layout of the private room was very simple, with only 1 table and 2 chairs, the furniture made of top-quality sandalwood filled the entire room with a sense of tranquility. Through the special glass that faced the auction hall, not only could one see the items being auctioned at first glance, one could also observe the appearance and actions of everyone in the hall. Yu Haoran nodded in satisfaction. Yu Haoran sat on a large armchair on the left and waited for the auction to begin. However, when he saw Bian Xingrui appear on the auction stage, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows slightly. Because with Bian Xingrui's strength and status, not to mention the Guangling City branch, even if it was an auction held by the headquarters of the central region, it would be difficult to invite the dignified First Elder to personally preside over it. Therefore, he couldn't help but ask Yun Xiang, who was brewing the Snow Mountain iced tea for him. Xiang what amazing treasures are there in the auction held by your heavenly earth? Turning to look at Bian Xingrui, who appeared on the auction stage, Yun Xiang shook her head and said, Master, the whole auction is handled by Uncle Bian alone. Xiang doesn't know the specific situation of the auction items. In this regard, Yu Haoran didn't ask too much, because no matter how precious the next auction items were, with his current reserve of spirit stones, he had full confidence in winning it. In fact, the sudden appearance of Bian Xingrui on the auction stage not only surprised Yu Haoran, but also shocked all the people in the hall, as well as the distinguished guests in the 35 private rooms. Some shrewd distinguished guests in the private rooms had used special means to inform the forces behind them to raise spirit stones as soon as possible so that they could bid for the amazing treasures that might appear. Cough! After ascending the stage, Bian Xingrui glanced at the messy people in the hall and coughed softly. When everyone was quiet and focused on him, Bian Xingrui said jokingly, Among the distinguished guests present, there are those who know me, and there are those who don't. But regardless of whether you know me or not, I would like to introduce myself first. It can also be considered as promoting my fame and raising my reputation. My surname is Bian, and my name is Xingrui. I am now the Elder of Heavenly World and the host of this auction. Elder Bian, with your identity and status, you don't need to host the auction in person. Is it possible that there will be some incredible treasures in the auction items this time, so that you, who have a high position, will be alarmed? Just after Bian Xingrui's self-introduction, An expert from the number 7 private room couldn't wait to ask. Distinguished guest, please allow me to keep you guessing, and I hope that you can slowly discover and witness the grand occasion of this auction through the auction items one by one. Although the distinguished guest in the number 7 private room was powerful and was the object that Heavenly World didn't want to provoke easily, in order to be able to thoroughly make the reputation of Heavenly World through this auction, he could only try his best to respond. Quite dissatisfied with Lien Xingrui's response, there was an unhappy snort from the number 2 private room. In this regard, Lien Xingrui, who had been prepared in his heart, was not affected at all. He continued to say with a smile, "Originally, I have a lot of words of gratitude and encouragement to say, but seeing that you are eager to know the auction items of this auction, I will not continue to talk too much nonsense. I now announce the official start of the auction." As Bien Xingrui announced the start of the auction, a strong man whose cultivation was at the peak of the first-grade martial emperor realm and his body was extremely strong walked up to the high platform with his hands holding a black iron cage about 3 meters high wrapped in a black cloth that could block the prying of divine thoughts, and then gently put it down. The first auction item that Heavenly World took out instantly aroused the strong interest of the people present. The 3-meter iron cage made of black iron was normally used to imprison the cubs of exotic beasts. Could it be that the first auction item of Heavenly World was the cub of a pet beast worth tens of millions of yuan? Without making too many guesses, Lien Xingrui slowly lifted the black cloth, revealing a brown bear about 2 meters high in the black iron cage, with white fur in a V-shape on its chest. Frowning slightly, Yu Haoran didn't know what Bien Xingrui was doing. Although the brown bear's strength was sealed by a special secret method, causing its height to be only about 2 meters, it was obviously at the peak of the 9th level of the 5th rank through the aura it exuded. And it was very difficult to sign a pet beast contract with an exotic beast of this level. Yu Haoran, this is a female bear that has just given birth to a new life. Chapter 978. In the Auction House. I see. After hearing Thalink's explanation, Yu Haoran finally understood why Bien Xingrui was auctioning off the brown bear. But he wasn't interested in it, because the bear in front of him was just an ordinary brown bear. It didn't have the bloodline inheritance of an ancient divine beast like the black bear, and at the same time, it didn't have the strength to challenge those of a higher rank. Moreover, its highest achievement in the future was at most the 3rd tribulation quasi-venerable stage. Although Yu Haoran wasn't interested in the brown bear's offspring, some people at the scene who had discovered the brown bear's special condition couldn't hold back anymore. The brown bear at the peak of the 5th stage 9th rank has a starting price of 1 million 9th stage 1st rank spirit stones. Each bid increment must not be less than 100,000 spirit stones. Bien Xingrui, who had been silent all this time, waited until most people at the scene discovered the brown bear's secret before slowly starting the auction. But he gave an unbelievable low price to countless people at the scene. Because according to the beast pet market in the Tianxian continent, the market price of a 5th stage 9th rank brown bear's offspring was at least 30 to 40 million. But if it was auctioned through the auction house, the price would definitely be higher and should be around 50 million. Therefore, under normal circumstances, the starting price of a 5th stage 9th rank brown bear's offspring should be at least 10 million spirit stones. What's wrong with Uncle Bien? Why is the auction price so low? Yunxiang complained with a frown as she delivered the brewed Snow Mountain iced tea to Yu Haoran. Xiang don't worry, your Uncle Bien is doing the right thing. Slowly savoring the enjoyment of the Snow Mountain iced tea, Yu Haoran signaled Yunxiang not to worry too much. Why? Walking slowly behind Yu Haoran and gently massaging his shoulders, Yunxiang asked puzzledly. Although the starting price of the brown bear's offspring is only 1 million spirit stones, the final price will definitely exceed 50 million. Yu Haoran explained while enjoying the relaxation of Yunxiang's special technique on his body. Yu Haoran's explanation just now did not solve the question in Yunxiang's heart, so she continued to ask, "Then why didn't you set a higher price at the beginning? What if you failed?" "To avoid trouble," Yu Haoran said with a slightly sad expression as he placed the teacup on the table. "If we want to successfully obtain the life in the brown bear's stomach, we need to undo the seal on its strength. If they know that they are unable to escape, in order to prevent their children from being enslaved by humans, the brown bear is likely to kill the child the moment it is born. So, the starting price of 1 million actually refers to the price of the brown bear's corpse, not the offspring in its belly." Thinking carefully about the auction item that Uncle Bien had just announced, Yunxiang felt admiration for Bien Xingrue's cautiousness. At the same time, she felt endless admiration for her master who could see through Uncle Bien's thoughts at a glance. Such a precious exotic beast, and the auction price of 1 million is completely humiliating its value. "I will directly bid 10 million. Perhaps it was because Bien Xingrue's auction price was too low that the people present did not react for a while, resulting in an awkward situation. It was not until a young but very arrogant bid came from the 9th private room that the awkward situation was broken. But at the same time, it instantly ignited the enthusiasm of the bidding. 11 million. A middle-aged man from the hall, whose cultivation was only at the beginning of the 3rd level of the martial king realm, followed the young man who broke the awkward situation and gave a higher bid. 12 million. 15 million. It did not take long, only about a minute or so. The bidding price of the brown bear had exceeded the 50 million mark. 50 million spirit stones of the 1st grade of the 9th level was already the highest price in the market for the brown bear cub, and it gradually cooled down the heated atmosphere of the scene. 55 million. The young man in the 9th private room raised the bidding price again. But the voices of the people participating in the bidding were not heard again. In the end, the brown bear at the peak of the 9th level of the 5th level was bought by the young man in the 9th private room. Damn it! After hearing Bien Xingrue quickly announce that he had successfully won the bid for the brown bear, a young man about 20 years old in the 9th private room suddenly slammed the table angrily and cursed with gritted teeth. The young man raised the bidding price of the brown bear twice, not because he was kind enough to earn spirit stones for the celestial being Chamber of Commerce, but because he wanted to use this method to deplete the spirit stone reserves that could threaten his opponent in advance, so that if a heaven-defying treasure appeared, he would have enough advantage to seize the opportunity. But the result was that he did not cheat others, and he lost 55 million spirit stones for nothing. Minglong, don't worry about temporary gains and losses. Seeing the young man's exasperated look, a middle-aged man sitting next to him, whose cultivation had reached the peak of the 9th level of the martial saint realm, advised with a smile. Moreover, a mere 55 million spiritual stones is just a drop in the ocean to our Gu clan. Third uncle, Minglong knows. After hearing the middle-aged man's comfort, Gu Minglong took a deep breath and his expression returned to normal. Bien Xingrue was very happy that the first auction item had obtained such a good start. So, he arranged for people to exchange the brown bear and the spirit stone with the Gu clan. Then, he signaled his subordinates to bring out the second auction item. It was a wooden box made of fire paulownia wood. Fire paulownia wood, one of the 5 elements of wood, could not only be used to store the top spirit medicine, but also be used to refine the upper level of the Emperor realm. Its value was extraordinary. If the extraordinary fire paulownia wood could be used as a storage container, then what kind of precious spirit medicine was stored in the wooden box? This also aroused Yu Haoran's great interest. 4th level, 1st grade fire phoenix fruit. It can be used to refine the top elixir, and it can also directly improve the cultivation of the martial saint realm's fire attribute expert by a small realm. Taking the wooden box handed by his subordinate, Bien Xingrue opened the wooden box and introduced the origin and effect of the spirit fruit in the wooden box. As soon as Bien Xingrue finished his introduction, and a scorching aura quickly dispersed, the atmosphere of the scene suddenly became hot. For the distinguished guests in the 36 private rooms, in addition to being shocked by the preciousness of the fire phoenix fruit, they also realized that this auction was unusual. As the fire phoenix fruit could directly improve the cultivation of the martial saint realm, it usually appeared as the last auction item. However, in this auction of Heavenly World, the second auction item was the fire phoenix fruit. Then, the next auction item's preciousness was at least higher than the fire phoenix fruit. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.